through. If you're coming from Howick or Hilton, off-ramp at Sadara, off-ramp at Hilton, get onto that old road. Trucks will have to go through and be stacked. There's a major queue of traffic. Durban bound at Town Hill this morning. Rob Byrne, SAFM Traffic.
A very good morning to you. In your SFM sports headlines, there is news from the rugby camp as Siya Kolisi will return to the Sharks camp from his departure at Racing 92. And at the Paralympic Games in Paris, Team South Africa return home with 6 medals. Details around 6:30.
The Morning Brief with Thulasizwe Simelane. Weekdays, Monday to Friday, 6 to 9 a.m. The Morning Brief with Thulasizwe Simelane. Weekdays, Monday to Friday, 6 to 9 a.m.
It's just gone 5 minutes after 6. It is Monday, the 9th of September, 2024. Good morning, South Africa. This is the Morning Brief on SAFM. It's good to be with you. How was your weekend? I hope you had a fantastic weekend. I sure did. I took some time to rest. And I must say it is a beautiful day in Johannesburg. I don't know what it's like where you are. You're getting a sense that we are edging ever closer to the start in earnest of the spring season. And the cover of darkness is lifting a bit earlier with each and every day that passes. So it is looking good. We had a great weekend. I hope you had a good one too. Let me tell you what's coming up on the show in the next 3 hours. I'll start with just reflecting on the past weekend. Let's talk about, once again, we're here talking about how the Springboks have made the country proud, made all of us proud, winning their 4th successive test against the All Blacks to take the Freedom Cup, and they remain unbeaten in the 2024 Rugby Championship. I know that we have spoken about if only it was possible to bottle that gees, that spirit, right? That's one thing. But it had me thinking about, you remember in the Thabo Mbeki years, the Mbeki administration, there was talk of making South Africa a quote-unquote winning nation. And that idea came back to me, and I said, I wonder what it would take to translate the victories we celebrate on the field of play in as far as the Springboks and other great South African sports people are concerned, and transform that and translate that to having a pact of some sort that we will become this winning nation. And I'm talking beyond sport now. I'm talking being a winning nation in terms of dealing with the issues that we are dealing with in this country. Winning against crime, winning against, the poor economic growth statistics that we continue to grapple with, and starting to turn the tide on unemployment and inequality and issues to do with race relations and human dignity. And I don't know what your thoughts are, how we translate that and actually have that pact that says beyond the sporting fields, we will become this winning nation. Today, being the 9th of September, marks exactly a full year since the death of the IFP founder and traditional Prime Minister of the Zulu Nation, Nkosi Mangosuthu Buthelezi. You can expect to see a lot of reflections throughout the day on his life, legacy, and contribution to our country's history and body politic. And in our Africa report, you will hear from Sipho Mantula. He'll be reporting on elections that took place in Algeria on Saturday, and will tell you about the win there by the incumbent president. Coming up, though, on the show in the next 3 hours, at about 20 to 7, we'll be speaking to Motalatale Modiba, who speaks on behalf of the Department of Health in Gauteng. He'll be responding to the horror experiences that were shared by Tom London about his stay at the Helen Joseph Hospital. The irony of naming these places after our great historical icons, and then going on to not ensure that, the work ethos and the professional service ethos that prevails at these institutions is one that affirms human dignity in a way that those icons whose names we tap into in a way that is true to the values that they stood for. So I'll be engaging Motalatale Modiba. He'll be responding to those allegations made by Tom London. Let's hear what he has to say about those. And of course, after 7, I'll be talking to the Premier of KwaZulu-Natal, Thami Ntuli. He's also responsible, as you know, for community safety for that portfolio, which he absorbed into the Premier's portfolio. And he's talking tough on crime, but this happens, of course, against the backdrop of extortion gangs continuing to wreak havoc in the province and in other parts of the country. He'll tell us about his plans as well as his call for undocumented foreign nationals to be deported. Thami Ntuli talking to me just at around 10 past 7 here on the Morning Brief on SAFM.
Dawn breaks across the lush Serengeti plain, but paradise is fleeting as the animals face fresh challenges. Kali the lioness and Bakari the baboon may seem safe in their rock fortresses, but with rivals encroaching on all sides, their future hangs in the balance. Out on the plains, Duma the cheetah faces his destiny. And down by the river, baby hippo Mafuta strikes up an unlikely friendship with the crocodile Magamba. Channel your inner explorer with Serengeti Season 3, Sundays at 6 p.m. only on S3. Open up.
For credible and comprehensive coverage of South Africa's fast-moving mining industry and the people shaping it, click through to Creamer Media's Mining Weekly. From policy and innovation to market-moving trends, Creamer Media's Mining Weekly keeps your finger on the resources pulse. For even deeper insight, subscribe to our New Look weekly magazine, out every Friday, together with engineering news. Creamer Media's Mining Weekly. Current, credible, comprehensive.
The National Thunder trust their game plan will trouble the Sparrow Hawks. However, the Togolese believe they will punch above their weight to secure victory. This is the Total Energies AFCON 2025 qualifier. Witness the beauty of African football. Equatorial Guinea collides with Togo on Monday, 9 September at 5 p.m. Live on SABC Sport on DTT Channel 4. Also available at your fingertips on SABC Plus and SABCSport.com. Brought to you by SABC Sport. For the love of the game.
This Heritage Month, SAFM invites you to celebrate the rich tapestry of our nation's diverse cultures. From the vibrant beats of our traditional music to the flavors of our unique cuisines, every culture tells a story of strength, unity, and identity. We honor the heroes and heroines who laid down their lives for our freedom, reminding us that our shared heritage is what makes us strong. Together as one, we celebrate who we are because our culture is our identity. This Heritage Month, let's celebrate every culture, every story, and every voice. The Daily News Diary on SAFM.
And good morning. I hope you had a fantastic weekend. What's on the diary this morning?
Good morning, Tulas. Indeed, I had a great one.
Great.
We are looking at stories that dominated headlines this weekend, and the state of public hospitals once again in the spotlight. Reaction on the video post on social media by Tom London alleging ill treatment at the Helen Joseph Hospital. The Gauteng Department of Health has come out saying that they are launching an investigation looking into the allegations. Taking our focus to the Eastern Cape, where a mass protest is planned to take place in Mthatha today against the high level of crime. Residents, they want crimes including extortion, femicide and stock theft to be highlighted, and this protest march is taking place just a day after the National Police Commissioner General Fani Masimula was in Mthatha to give an update on the police's intervention, which is focusing on extortion. A Northwest pensioner and his accomplice are facing charges of illegal mining, and this after he allegedly allowed illegal miners access to a local mine, and that is through a hole in the floor at his home. They are expected to appear in the Rustenburg Magistrates Court today. The Groblersdal Magistrates Court also expected to deliver judgment on the bail application of 2 of the 5 accused drug lords, and the accused were arrested for allegedly operating a drug
drug lab, and the drugs discovered by the Hawks are estimated at about 2 billion rand. The other accused are 3 Mexican nationals. The murder trial in the Senzo Mehiwa case is expected to call a new witness this morning, and last week the Defence Counsel accused the ballistics analyst Chris Mangena of giving unreliable evidence in the Mehiwa trial, and Mangena has now wrapped up his evidence in chief at the High Court in Pretoria. We know that 5 men are on trial for the 2014 murder of the Bafana Bafana captain, and then the Human Science Research Council, the HSRC, will today release the key provincial findings of the 6th South African National HIV Prevalence Incidence and Behaviour Survey for the North West Province, and it will highlight key areas of progress in the province and provide guidance basically for HIV program planning and implementation. And just lastly, the Tourism Minister, Patricia de Lille, is expected to launch Sandparks Mahala Week in Tabazimbi, and this nationwide annual campaign is aimed at promoting domestic tourism and also ensuring that locals get to experience wildlife by opening the doors of all national parks for free to all South Africans.
All right, and thank you for that. And Musa will keep you updated every half hour here on the Morning Brief, but also those stories you can catch throughout the day here on SAFM.
Tulasizwe Simelane on SAFM.
All right, as you're getting ready for the day, let's give you a sense of what the weather is looking like. And I had to do a double take when I looked at the first warning that I have for you. It mentions snow, and I thought, it's September. Snow, what are you talking about? 3 warnings for you on the weather front. The first one is that disruptive snow resulting in localized traffic disruptions and localized loss of livestock is expected in places along the Eastern Cape Escarpment and KwaZulu-Natal high ground. A yellow level 1 warning, damaging waves resulting in localized disruptions to roads, harbors and or ports are expected between Plettenberg Bay and Port Edward in the morning. And the third one, yellow level 1 warning, winds and waves leading to difficulty in navigation at sea are expected between Alexander Bay and Cape Agulhas in the morning. There's also a fire danger warning, and that is extremely high fire danger conditions are expected in places in Limpopo. The weather in Pretoria is partly cloudy with isolated showers and thunder showers. It's a minimum of 14, maximum 28. The expected UVB sunburn index is very high, so do take care. In Johannesburg, partly cloudy with isolated showers and thunder showers, 10 to 26. In Vereeniging, it's partly cloudy with isolated showers and thunder showers, 15 to 28. Mbombela is cloudy with morning drizzle and the minimum temperature is 13 and the maximum 19. In Polokwane, it's partly cloudy with a minimum of 12 and a maximum of 23. Mahikeng is fine and windy with a minimum of 12 and a maximum of 31. Vryburg is fine and windy with a minimum of 2 and a maximum of 26. Bloemfontein is partly cloudy and windy with a minimum of 4 and a maximum of 22. Kimberley is fine and windy with a minimum of 5 and a maximum of 21. Uppington is fine and windy, 1 to 19. Cape Town is fine. The wind is moderate to fresh southerly to southeasterly. It's a minimum of 10 and a maximum of 20. The expected UVB sunburn index is high. In George, it's cloudy with isolated showers in the morning, otherwise partly cloudy with a minimum of, with the wind being light and variable. And the minimum temperature in George is 9, maximum 15. Gqeberha is cloudy with isolated showers and rain. The wind is moderate to fresh southeasterly with a minimum of 9 and a maximum of 17. In East London, the weather is cloudy with scattered showers and rain. The wind is moderate southerly to southeasterly, minimum 9, maximum 16. Durban is cloudy with widespread showers and rain. The wind is moderate to fresh southerly to southwesterly. It's a minimum of 12 and a maximum of 14. The expected UVB sunburn index is moderate in Durban. Richards Bay is cloudy with widespread showers and rain. The wind is moderate to fresh southerly to southwesterly. It's a minimum of 14 and a maximum of 17 in Richards Bay. And finally, in Pietermaritzburg, the weather will see morning fog patches, otherwise cloudy with scattered showers and rain, with a minimum of 8 and a maximum of 10.
We've upgraded. Our new GIS-linked national address database lets us connect with you better than ever before. By visualizing licensed and unlicensed households nationwide, we can ensure timely communication. Our payment reminders are a crucial tool to help you stay compliant and avoid penalties, empowering you to take proactive steps. Efficient electronic communication helps us collect fees seamlessly, bolstering the SABC's mandate in line with Section 27 of the Broadcasting Act. TV licenses. Pay yours. Make a difference.
Hold on to your hats, folks, because FlySafair is heading to the windy corner. That's right, we'll be flying between Cape Town and Windhoek from the 22nd of October, and tickets are on sale now. So, if stunning landscapes, diverse wildlife and vibrant culture is your thing, get to flysafair.co.za now and book flights from just 1,800 Rand. With FlySafair, Namibia is never too far away. FlySafair, for the love of flying. T's and C's apply.
Niger have a mammoth task to silence their regional neighbors, Ghana. Meanwhile, the Black Stars want to bring back the glory days and triumph this West African derby. This is the Total Energies AFCON 2025 qualifier. Witness the beauty of African football. Niger tackles Ghana on Monday, 9 September at 6 p.m. Live at your fingertips on SABC Plus and SABCSport.com. Brought to you by SABC Sport. For the love of the game.
Worldview Update, bringing you closer to international or global news.
Yeah, let's do exactly that. In a story that bears eerie similarities with last year's Usindiso building fire here in Johannesburg in Jeppestown, an inquiry in the United Kingdom has found that the Grenfell Tower fire of 2017 that killed 72 people was the result of a chain reaction of failures at multiple levels. It's found that a combination of government failures, corporate misconduct and poor fire safety oversight formed part of the confluence of factors that ultimately led to the deaths, which the inquiry has described as entirely avoidable. Let's speak now to Musa Mdunge, a political analyst based at the University of Dundee in the United Kingdom. And Mr. Mdunge, good morning and thank you for joining us. So just give me a sense of how this report, this long-awaited final leg of the report has been received in the United Kingdom. I imagine that it has stirred quite a fair amount of outrage.
Thank you so much for having me. Good morning to you and to the listeners. Yes, certainly, this report has been quite damning for particularly, I would make an argument, for the Conservative Party, particularly because certain rules, certain things had changed under the leadership of David Cameron in 2010, and unfortunately for them, this is quite a huge indictment. For example, the Building Research Establishment, which was set up in order to advise construction companies, was privatized. In 1997, and all of these things many of these things led up to the challenges that were faced, as you put it so nicely, very similar to what we faced in South Africa with those buildings burning. And so for the Conservative Party, they have questions to answer for the Labour Party as well, because if you think in 1997, many of these rules changed with the incoming of the Labour Party and changes in how the Labour Party see policy. And that forced them to really look away on certain regulations that were very key. Given that they privatized a lot of the regulatory institutions that dealt with the matter. And at the heart is really that.
Yeah, and Musa, I particularly liked the thoroughness of the report, right? Because when you are asked to investigate a fire, I've never had to do it, but I imagine that, for the common person like me, you think, what sparked the flame and how did the fire spread so quickly. But I like the fact that they went into the causal factors that are beyond the surface, that have to do with regulation, as you say, but also the conduct of corporates in the United Kingdom.
Yes, certainly. The report was quite thorough. And, when you understand the United Kingdom, they're very big on their rules and the regulation, particularly even the roles of the councils. The council bodies are very important in this particular case. And so when you looked at the Grenfell report, it highlights, in fact, the poor role of council bodies in regulating, in managing contractors who would build, particularly if you think about council housing as well. And there was a huge indictment on the role of local government in that particular space. Again, drawing that similarity, if you think about the challenges we have with the buildings in particularly Johannesburg, for example. So in essence, what this report basically said, that a lot of people just didn't do their role, particularly when it came in oversight, particularly when it came in maintaining that rules and regulations were followed. And I would imagine that following this report, a lot of heads will roll.
You imagine that a lot of heads will roll, but actually we started seeing that with the way that the Tories were taken to the cleaners in the recent elections, didn't we?
Yes, so the Tories, of course, as you know, they were taken to the cleaners. It was a shallow victory for the Labour Party, but nonetheless a victory. And again, this report is just another long score of the legacy of Tory failures, but dating back again, and has certain questions, even for the Labour Party. And we're seeing it already with the current polling. The Labour Party is finding it difficult to govern and difficult to get anything started. But hopefully, such reports will lead to improvements in the future.
And in terms of what is being said now by the Labour government, what are some of the key messages that are coming forth now? It's easy to lay the blame at the doorstep of the previous government and the austerity gone wild. But what about what's going to happen going forward now?
Well, look, I mean, part of the Labour Party's branding and in this moment is really to try and fix the challenges that were left by the Conservative Party. Now, of course, Keir Starmer, and his Labour Party have promised to follow up on this particular report, have promised to follow the recommendations, but time will tell. Really, we're still in the early segments of this particular government. They already had challenges, with protests all over the country. They've had so many challenges so far. So time will tell whether this becomes a challenge that will really, stay on the radar, or will it leave the public radar? And it will be key. It will be important to see what do the British people, particularly those affected, do in order to ensure that something like this never happens again.
And I'm just imagining what all of this means for the families who lost loved ones at Grenfell. 72 people did. I imagine that, initially they got in the first report, it was about immediate causes of the fire and the reaction thereto. Now seeing the roles of so many societal players and leaders must be something that, evokes strong emotions and basically opens wounds for some of the families of those that died.
Yes, certainly, and there has been quite an extensive litigation on this matter. For example, about 150 million pounds, that would be about 3 billion rand. For example, has been awarded, globally on this particular matter. But particularly for these 72 victims who passed away and their particular families, there's a lot of litigation that is still ongoing, dating back from, 2022, and has not yet necessarily been finalized. But, there's hope that given the release of this report, it will place the kind of political pressure and kind of public pressure that will be required in order to see a settlement of these issues, especially from the government. For example, the government has pledged about 25 million pounds in terms of compensation for the families as part of a broader settlement. But this is still an ongoing negotiation.
All right, I've got to thank you for your time and your insights this morning. That is Musa Mdunge, who is a political analyst based at the University of Dundee in the United Kingdom, talking to me on our Worldview update about the release of the final report into the Grenfell Tower fire of 2017 that left 72 people dead. I mean, you should get a glimpse of that report. It makes some damning findings that, basically talk to failures at every level, from the government in terms of how it dealt with, updating codes, fire codes and regulations, and as far as buildings are concerned, combustible material still being used in high-rise towers, especially, accommodation, high-rise accommodation, that continued despite early warnings that, according to the inquiry, started coming forth from as early as 2001, but those were ignored, to how the building managers themselves played their role in the relationship they had with the tenants. It is pretty damning, and it does contain lessons for all of us, including those who run cities in cities like Johannesburg. And that brings us to 6:30, time for a news headline update with Ann Musa.
Good morning. Thanks to us. In the headlines, a mass protest against escalating crime is expected to take place in Mthatha in the Eastern Cape today. The crimes, including extortion, femicide and stock theft, are expected to be highlighted. The National Police Commissioner, Fani Masimula, has meanwhile assured residents of Mthatha that his officers are doing their best to deal with extortion cases. And the U.S. Secretary of State, Anthony Blinken, says the political exile of Venezuela's opposition presidential candidate in Spain is the direct result of anti-democratic measures that the government has taken. I'll have details on these and other stories at 7.
SAFM, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
Top traffic story, the closure of the N3 to Durban at Town Hill as the truck that's overturned right across both lanes that are open there between Peterborough and Chatterton Road. Nothing getting through, and possibly nothing getting through for a while, I would think. Major backlog of traffic, thousands of trucks stuck in parking back towards Merivale. You may well find yourself officially taken off at Sadara, certainly at Hilton in light vehicles, and ship down the alternatives. Trucks, where possible, will be prevented from doing that, although they always seem to sneak through, don't they, as you hit the alternative during a closure, and you're seeing a lot of truck traffic on the alternative. But either way, it's a very heavy backlog. Trucks being stacked towards Durban, no movement there. Anybody else that's coming down will have to do the alternative route, so make sure you've got plenty of time to get through and get out the other side. Staying in KZN, there's some early morning pressure on the N2 South into Spaghetti Junction. Coming to Durban, the crash on Eskia and Pathleli near the engine garages, so quite heavy coming off the Mopani Highway onto the Eskia and Pathleli Junction in towards Pretoria. And Cape Town, a crash on the N1 into town by Monte Vista. A motorcyclist involved in that. If you're in from the Belleville side, traffic starting to push back up Plattercliff Hill. Rob Byrne, SAFM Traffic.
This is SAFM Sport with Zai Khan.
Zai, I've got to tell you that I'm a Johnny come lately when it comes to rugby and understanding even the basics of the game. So you can imagine my shock then when I saw Siya Kolisi. And initially I thought racing, then I thought, no, racing, is it?
Yes, racing.
I thought has he taken up racing?
Well, Johnny, as you call yourself, absolutely. You never know with Sias, because the way he raced through on Saturday that victory. Come on, this guy.
That's beautiful.
He's something else. And he made it look like a walk in the park. Well, a very rough park. But victory looked good on Siya Kolisi in green and gold. And I think leaving Racing 92, the French club, the exit that, Siya Kolisi has now executed with 2 years left on his contract. The decision announced comes amid reports that the Kolisi family was homesick. And I think, you know what, even though on the weekend he played with a broken nose, we are just happy to have that Kolisi will be back here on home soil, packing up from France. And I mean, there's no place like home, especially when home is Bok country. Let's go to our other national team, Bafana Bafana. They will chase an away win in Group K of the 2025 Africa Cup of Nations qualifiers when they face South Sudan at the Juba Stadium. That's tomorrow afternoon at 3 p.m. They got their campaign off to a rocky start. It was a 2-2 home draw against Uganda at the Orlando Stadium on Friday evening. Tennis action, the world number 1 Yannick Sinner stormed past Taylor Fritz to win the US Open and secure a second Grand Slam title of the year. Italy's Sinner, who won his first major title at the Australian Open in January, held off a late charge from the American 12-seed Fritz to win 6-3, 6-4, 7-5. And it comes just 19 days after it was revealed that Sinner had been cleared of any wrongdoing after twice testing positive for a banned substance in March. Here's the world number 1, Yannick Sinner.
Here was difficult because also the pre-tournament circumstances were not easy. I felt like that I've grown, match by match, and that my confidence level went higher and higher at some point. But it was different because I had maybe a bit more pressure this time.
And in the women's draw, the second seed Arina Sabalenka beats the other American Jessica Pegula 7-5, 7-5 to win the US Open for the first time at Flushing Meadows. Cycling, Primož Roglič won the Vuelta a España for a record-equaling 4th time. The Slovenian wrapped up his 5th career Grand Tour when he finished second in the closing time trial on the streets of Madrid, which were won by Stefan Kung. Australia's Ben O'Connor finished runner-up overall, with Spain's Enric Mas completing the podium. MotoGP, Marc Marquez has won the San Marino and Rimini Riviera MotoGP, while Francesco Bagnaia closed in on the championship leader Jorge Martin, whose gamble on pitting for rain tyres came with a heavy cost. Red Bull KTM Factory Racing, South African rider Brad Binder missed out on a place in the podium. He finished the race in 4th place. And finally, Paralympic news. South Africa's Paralympic team, they're returning home from the Paris Games with 6 medals. Mpumelelo Mhlongo led the charge, winning gold in the T44 100 meter and the bronze in the T64 200 meter, breaking the T44 world record. 19-year-old Simone Kruger claimed gold, and that was in the women's F38 discus, setting a new Paralympic record with a throw of 38.7 meters. Lizanne Coetzee, the visually impaired distance runner, earned bronze in the T11 1,500 meters, breaking her national record. Peter Duprier, he secured bronze in the H1 hand cycling time trial, and in wheelchair tennis, Donald Rampadi and Lucas Sitole taking bronze in the quad doubles. That's how we wrap up your sport on the Morning Brief. Headlines, top of the hour. I'm Zai Khan.
There's sponsoring a news feature. Then there's helping your clients make the news. Search Standard Bank Business and Commercial Banking to see how far they can take your business.
The Business Update on SAFM.
All right, let's go to Ndauleng Lechela for that. And Ndauleng, good morning. I hope you had a great weekend.
Morning, Tulas. I had a lovely weekend. The Boca won, so it's been great.
All is good. So the U.S. job numbers always have us almost on tenterhooks, right? Because of the size and influence of the United States economy and the trade with other economies as well. So you're looking at U.S. hiring numbers, and it seems that's slowing.
That's right. Now, the post-pandemic hiring boom has been weakening this year. According to data, the U.S. economy added 142,000 jobs in August. This was below expectations of 163,000. This print, one that is watched closely by the Fed, as a weakening labor market suggests that the economy is struggling and that policymakers should start easing monetary policy to stimulate growth. Now, this report comes at a critical time as well as voters weigh presidential candidates for the November election, and the U.S. Central Bank debates its first cut to interest rates in 4 years. And the direction of hiring. Now, just reaffirming analysts' bets of a rate cut come next week. I guess the big question here is how big will the cut be? The print also revealed that the U.S. unemployment rate improved from 4.3% to 4.2% last month. Zooming in on that print, construction and healthcare firms led the hiring in August, while manufacturers and retailers got rid of roles. Analysts, in the meantime, have raised concerns about the print. Paul Ashworth of Capital Economics says the labor market is still experiencing a marked slowdown, adding that the latest figures were overall still consistent with an economy experiencing a soft landing rather than falling straight into a recession.
Dowling, there's something a bit deja vu about the next story, right? The pledges to help South Africa and fund South Africa in its efforts for a just transition from a high carbon economy to a low carbon economy. And this time around, that pledge is coming from Germany.
That's right. Now, it seems like everyone is just putting their hands together, racing for to make changes ahead of that 2030 Paris Agreement. Now, Germany has offered to help South Africa finance its transition to renewable energy, such as solar and wind power, and strengthen its energy infrastructure. The funding of about 390 billion rand will support the country's goal of enhancing energy security and reducing its reliance on fossil fuels. Now, it's said that Germany will provide some of the funding once the scope for the grid expansion project has been determined. Despite energy supply improving this year, the country has been struggling with power outages for years. And in an attempt to deal with the issue, the grid has to be upgraded as it moves away from coal and towards renewable energy. But of course, there have been some challenges. The best spots for solar and wind power are far from the main industrial areas, and plans to improve the grid are moving slowly due to complicated decisions, especially about Eskom, including the splitting of the SOE and issues around private investment. This, of course, just delaying the process to transition. Despite this, German officials have praised South Africa for making progress on climate change and energy by passing new laws this year in form of the Climate Change and Electricity Regulation Amendment Bills. And
you have an update on Asian markets, US markets, and how the JSE closed on Friday.
So markets closed the first week of trade in September on a sour note as growth concerns returned. Traders are worried about the health of the U.S. economy following that downbeat jobs print. With that, U.S. markets ended in the red last week Friday, with the S&P 500 tracking its worst week since March last year. Over in Asia, those markets kicking the week off on the back foot, tumbling into the red. Traders, of course, waking up to the labor market numbers, which have boosted bets for Fed rate cuts, but of course sparked concerns about the state of the U.S. economy. It was red across the board here at home. The sour sentiment also hitting local markets. The all share losing close to 1% at the end of trade on Friday. The rand, in the meantime, remaining steady, trading at 17.83 to the dollar.
All right, thank you for that. And Dowling Lechela has got you covered with all news, business, and the markets throughout the morning here on the Morning Brief.
There's listening to the news, then there's making the news. Grow your business into the next big thing with Standard Bank Business and Commercial Banking. When you choose Standard Bank Business and Commercial Banking, you get access to our transactional banking solutions. Accessing our transactional banking solutions means you'll get a dedicated manager from the country's best relationship bank. When you have a dedicated relationship manager, their business is to understand your business and its financial needs. By understanding all your needs, they can connect you with the right sector and product experts across 15 key African markets. You see, there's transactional banking, then there's transactional banking with us. Search Standard Bank Business and Commercial Banking. Standard Bank is an authorized FSP and registered credit provider. T's and C's apply.
Tulasizwe Simelane on SAFM.
So you know what I haven't done since we started, and I'm sorry for it. I've not really given you the platforms and the numbers that you need to dial, because in as much as we are leading the conversation, you make the conversation. And those numbers for you to dial in studio, the number is 086 000 2032. 086 000 2032. 3232. Give us a call on that number and weigh in on all the topics that we are covering, as well as any other issues that may be weighing on your mind. But you can also send us a WhatsApp voice note and we'll play those on air. And the number is 061 410 4107. In a moment, I'm in conversation with Motalatale Modiba, who speaks on behalf of the Gauteng Department of Health.
Are you blowing your paycheck on car insurance every month? Monica, 39 from Three Rivers, pays just 1,515 Rand a month for her 2018 BMW 320i.
Give Outsurance a call. It's a win-win. You can't lose.
Real savings, real benefits. Here's Yusuf.
Help it out. The service was quick. Absolutely phenomenal service from Outsurance.
SMS out to 30754 now. That's out to 30754. Outsurance is a licensed insurer and FSP. T's and C's online.
1 hour for the kids' school run, 8 hours at work, 2 hours preparing meals, and so much more. Sure. 24 hours is simply not enough to do it all. Luckily at UNISA, you don't need to find time for your studies. Anytime will do. Shape your future with the leading open distance e-learning university in Africa. Applications to study undergraduate qualifications at UNISA in 2025 are open. Visit unisa.ac.za to apply. UNISA, define tomorrow.
So why should I use We Buy Cars if I want to sell my vehicle?
Because We Buy Cars buys cars.
But will I get the right price?
Of course. We Buy Cars buys thousands of vehicles and knows exactly what every vehicle is worth. Their buyers deliver exceptional service and pay you immediately.
And how do I know what they'll pay for my vehicle?
It's easy. Visit webuycars.co.za or use the We Buy Cars app. Follow the simple steps and voila, you'll know your car's value in no time. We Buy Cars. Quick, easy, the best.
EFC is live this Thursday. The bantamweight title is on the line, live from the World Sports Betting Arena, as the top-ranked divisional contenders and perennial fan favorites Faiz Jacobs and Vince Bembe go to war.
Oh, big right for Faiz Jacobs. The finish, and it's over. What a win. When he smells blood, he hunts mercilessly for the finish.
EFC is live this Thursday. Watch it on SABC Sport Channel on DTT Channel 4 from 7 p.m. Brought to you by SABC Sport.
SAFM 104 to 107. Nationwide.
14 minutes to 7, you're listening to the morning brief here on SAFM. To this story now, the Gauteng Department of Health says it is investigating allegations made by a patient named Tom London, a former broadcaster, against one of its facilities, the Helen Joseph Hospital in Johannesburg. In a video shared on social media, London shows, among others, portions of the hospital's Ward 8, revealing bathtubs and wash basins that have rust on them, mixer taps that don't work, toilet shanks with no covers, and one of them without toilet paper roll, and a ceiling that's peeling off. But worryingly, he accuses the hospital's doctors of treating patients extremely poorly, saying he slept in the hospital's casualty area for 3 days as there were no beds in the ward. He also goes on to allege that a patient who had been in a bed next to his had been left unattended for at least 20 minutes after he had died. Let's speak to Motalatale Modiba, who is the head of communications at the Department of Health in Gauteng. Good morning, Motalatale. You're saying that you are investigating as a department. What exactly are you investigating?
Morning, Tulas. I suppose it's never too late to say congratulations on.
Thank you.
To this, but just to get to the issue that you are mentioning, indeed, we have received the complaint in terms of what has been shared on various platforms, as you've alluded to, and obviously, I think you have already characterized the issues that Tom London, who has been our patient for about 2 weeks prior to this moment, has actually laid out. Let me start it this way: the infrastructure issues. I think in the statement that we shared, it's something that we have long acknowledged, even during the budget vote, some of the infrastructural challenge that we have insofar as the state of the infrastructure, some of it being old and so forth. And we outlined a program of maintenance and refurbishment that we are currently rolling out. In the very same facility that we're talking about, we just about 3 months ago, we opened a newly refurbished accident and emergency unit, which has now been expanded and so forth as part of the program that we're currently having. So of course the facilities, which there would be areas like the one where the ward where the gentleman was at, which you have already alluded to the issue of the taps and the bathrooms there and so forth, which would require certain work to be done there.
I appreciate that, Mutalatale, but because of time, and I'm pressed for time, always am, the question to you was, what exactly are you investigating in this instance?
Okay. The investigation, obviously, there are allegations made around healthcare workers in the facility in terms of the treatment that they would have been given to Tom London. And I think at the heart of this main issue, from what we can gather, is he seems to be alleging that he was not treated properly. The kind of treatment that was given, and that obviously, if it's an allegation in the sense that we need to also then investigate and also question those that would have been on duty at that time and look at the type of treatment that he was given and so forth. Clinically speaking, when we got the report yesterday, it looked like clinically he was given the right medical attention, but I think there are softer issues insofar as patient experience of care is concerned. The attitude that he referred to consistently, it's something that we're dealing with, and I think hence we have now obviously rolling out a program of I Serve with a Smile, which we started in November. We're still rolling out to several facilities, and that program was introduced precisely because we acknowledge that we have had a chronic challenge of the attitude that sometimes we give to patients when they come to our facilities. And
we don't have the best of lines, Mutalatale, unfortunately, and I would have wanted to continue to engage you a bit further on the statement that you released, but the line is really not doing us a great service. It's cutting out here and there, and I think we've gotten the gist of what the attitude is and what you are investigating as a department. That is Mutalatale Modiba, who speaks on behalf of the Gauteng Department of Health. He is head of communications. It's a pity about that line because I really had a lot to engage him on about that statement that they issued. Particularly, for instance, I wanted to take issue with the amount of time spent acknowledging the patient's experience, because I actually took the trouble to count that the statement is 12 paragraphs long and only 2 of those paragraphs are dedicated to acknowledging the experience of Tom London, and then the rest are just dedicated to telling you about the program that Mutalatale was talking to, I Serve with a Smile. I would have wanted to engage him on those aspects that concern me, but unfortunately that line is not the greatest. Mutalatale Modiba there.
SAFM, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
Good morning, Joburg side. A collision coming in from the Ekurhuleni region. It's just after the N12 and R24, which have merged before Galuli's near Boeing Road Bridge. Both of those highways into Joburg are queuing reasonably heavily. A breakdown on the M1 South at New Road. The left lane is closed. Monday traffic parking back heavily through towards Brockfontein interchange. And there's been a crash between Monument Park and Fountain Circle if you're on the R21 heading into Pretoria. That's quite a heavy queue. And Eskia and Pathlele down by Moot Street. There's a crash there. And that's a really heavy delay on Eskia coming from Pretoria North. But an even bigger backlog behind that on the R80 Mopani Highway. Nowhere to go as you come off into that traffic on Eskia and Pathlele. That's back heavily right through Theo Martins. Here's the other big one. A truck overturning at Town Hill on your way to Durban. The road is closed effectively between Peter Brown and the Chatterton exit. Nothing getting through. It's a major truck crash in where it's overturned, blocked all the lanes and nothing moving there. Major delay. Kilometres of trucks being stacked back from on that scene, Peter Brown. And then you've got a diversion now, which appears to be sort of official, RTI taking you off at Sadara and possibly at Hilton as well, and setting the passenger vehicles down the old road. Plenty of videos and pics of that scene up on X.com at Traffic SA. You can see what motorists and truckers are driving into, and you can get a gauge of how long it'll take to clear up. Breakdown on Durban's N2 South before Spaghetti Junction, so some early morning pressures there. Cape Town crash, N1 into town near Monte Vista, that's heavy from Belleville. Crash on Baden-Powell Drive going out from Mitchell's Plain to Muizenberg before you get to Strandfontein Road, and then it's very sandy. We reckon about 80% of Baden-Powell is under sand this morning, and Monwa BC Coastal Park area, so there will be a disruption through that sand and obstruction. Rob Byrne, SAFM Traffic.
Okay. They actually did it. I mean, I've seen it done in other countries, but now they have a whole new local season of the show. Oh, Mzansi, you beautiful, amazing land with diverse families and cultures. Wife Swap South Africa is finally here. Tune in from Monday the 9th of September and see how families from across South Africa swap wives and learn a thing or two or three on how other families operate. There will be disruptions, lessons learned, tears, and smiles in this unique and insightful social experiment. Channel your best entertainment with Wife Swap, Mondays at 6 p.m. only on S3. Open up.
Hold on to your hats, folks, because FlySafair is heading to the windy corner. That's right, we'll be flying between Cape Town and Windhoek from the 22nd of October, and tickets are on sale now. So, if stunning landscapes, diverse wildlife and vibrant culture is your thing, get to flysafair.co.za now and book flights from just 1,800 Rand. With FlySafair, Namibia is never too far away. FlySafair, for the love of flying. T's and C's apply.
The Bright Stars are on a massive mission to brighten the mood of the South Sudanese citizens with victory. But Bafana Hugo Bros say they have already bought an extra flight ticket to travel back home with 3 points. This is the Total Energies AFCON 2025 qualifier. Witness the beauty of African football. South Sudan tackle South Africa on Tuesday, 10 September at 2:30 p.m. Live on SABC1 and SABC radio stations. Also available at your fingertips on SABC Plus and SABCSport.com. Brought to you by SABC Sport.
For the love of the game.
Tulasizwe Simelane on SAFM.
The story out of KwaZulu-Natal now, and all procurement, tender and employment interviews in the Department of Public Works and Infrastructure in that province will from now on be conducted on full audio and video record. The department says the new tender and appointment procedure is aimed at enhancing the fairness of these processes, which have long been dogged by allegations of corruption, nepotism, and collusion between candidates and departmental insiders. It says any tender or appointment process that is not conducted on audio and visual record will be deemed null and void. Let's welcome the MEC for Public Works and Infrastructure in KwaZulu-Natal, Martin Meyer. Mr. Meyer, good morning and thank you for your time. So how does doing these interviews and these tender procurement processes on video and audio record enhance their fairness?
So almost every tender that the department puts out, we get an appeal. It has to go through the whole appeals process, ends up in court quite often, and that just slows down service delivery. Same with applications for senior posts. And that's why we decided we need to make sure that there is transparency. And transparency is very important for the new government of unity, but also that the system is monitored so that if there's appeals, we can very quickly get what really happened, and that will speed up any processes. And it's also there to protect everyone. It's there to protect the officials of the department from false allegations, but it's also there to protect tenders and the public whose tax money we are responsible for spending.
Do you accept, though, MEC, that the interview and tender adjudication process is one portion of the process, right? That the actual corrupting transaction in many instances actually has the potential to occur elsewhere that will not be on video and audio record?
Yes, but that still has to go through that process. So, any undue influence, we might be able to pick up from conversations there, because you still have to convince the rest of the committee if you've had any wrongdoings or bad conversations beforehand. We have to start somewhere. We've identified where the weak spots are in the process. We are working to strengthen them, and this is putting us well on the way of making the Department of Public Works and Infrastructure a much more transparent, but also a much more honest and fair department.
Explain to me the scope and scale of how this applies in as far as the appointment processes, quite apart from the tender procurement processes. So does this mean that if you have a position in the department and I'm coming for an interview, my interview as an ordinary Joe Soap will be conducted on full video and audio? That can be a bit intimidating for candidates, can it not?
Well, I think sitting in front of a panel of 3 or 4 people is already quite intimidating. The cameras, it's not going to be in your face. It's obviously done quite professionally in our boardrooms. It's already been set up. We didn't have to spend any money on it. And recording, I think, is very important. Anybody that comes to work for the department has to know that this department is committed to rooting out all forms of corruption. So if you come to apply and this happens, it is part of our processes. It's also there to protect you as a person who comes for that interview, to make sure that you are dealt with fairly and freely. So I think the only person that's going to be intimidated by this is someone that's got something to hide and no one else.
And you record on video and audio, then what? What do you do with these recordings? How do you archive them? How do you protect personal information and the likes?
So it is safely secured on the servers of the department, and it is guaranteed by CETA. It is done following all the necessary protocols that is there by law. It will only be accessed if there's any queries. So it doesn't mean once everything is over, myself or anybody else is now going to go through everything. It was only there to protect people for if there's any queries or anything like that. And it will also be kept for a certain period of time, after which following again the normal legal procedure. So this is nothing earth-shattering in the sense that the laws already exist to protect the data, and everything is done within our power to make sure it's kept safe, but it won't be used against people unless there's any queries or appeals or anything like that.
Right, I've got to thank you for your time and insights here on the Morning Brief. That is the MSc for Public Works and Infrastructure in KwaZulu-Natal. That's Martin Meyer talking about an initiative that they are taking to try and shield their processes from allegations and practices of, collusion, corruption and the likes by conducting all interviews as well as tender adjudication processes will from now on be done on full audio and video record, and anything done outside of that will be deemed null and void. And that brings us to 7 a.m. Time for a news update with Ann Musa.
In our top stories, a mass protest against crime in Mthatha and Venezuela's opposition candidate arrives in Spain. Good morning. A mass protest against escalating crime is expected to take place in Mthatha and the Eastern Cape today. The crimes, including extortion, femicide and stock theft, are expected to be highlighted. The protest march will take place a day after the National Police Commissioner, Fanny Masimula, visited Mthatha to give an update on police intervention in the crime of extortion. The Premier, Oscar Mabuyane, has expressed satisfaction with the police's reaction to the extortion syndicates in the province.
We have said that we can't coexist with thugs and criminals. We've got to flush them out. We've got to wipe them out. Our streets must be safe. Women must be free. People must walk free in their own communities without fear. A lot of progress has been made because we're confronting these thugs head on.
Meanwhile, Masimula has assured residents of Mthatha that his officers are doing their best to deal with extortion cases. Last week, a man reported to be a self-proclaimed traditional leader implicated in extortion cases was killed in a shootout with police. Masimula addressed the media in the town where extortion syndicates have been terrorizing residents.
We are assuring communities that a dedicated team of investigators
and members from specialized units that are attached to the task team dealing with extortions are working on this information with a view to build up cases and bring those responsible to book.
The Children's Institute at the University of Cape Town says its South African gauge has found that 1 in every 4 children in the country is stunted. It says child poverty hampers early childhood development. The institute uses the gauge to measure the progress and development of children. This year, the focus is on early childhood development, the institute's Laurie Lake.
And when we talk about ECD, for most people they think about ECD centres and early learning programs. But what the gauge says is we need to be thinking much more comprehensively about child well-being, and we need to be intervening really, really early in the life and development of a child. So when we talk about early childhood development, we're talking about a whole package of services and support that should be in place from conception until the time a child enters formal schooling. That includes maternal and child health services, starting in the antenatal period, so care and support for pregnant women.
The Sudan Doctors Network says the paramilitary rapid support forces are responsible for the shelling, in which more than 20 people were killed and more than 70 others wounded at a crowded market in southeastern Sudan. The incident happened in the town of Senna yesterday. Clashes between the military and paramilitary factions have led to an exodus of civilians from parts of Senna state. And finally, the U.S. Secretary of State Anthony Blinken says the political exile of Venezuela's opposition presidential candidate in Spain is the direct result of anti-democratic measures that the government has taken. Blinken says Edmundo González remains the best hope for Venezuelan democracy. González has promised to continue to fight in a message released after he arrived in Madrid. A warrant for his arrest was issued after the opposition disputed July's presidential election result, which saw the incumbent Nicolás Maduro handed a third term. The BBC's Mimi Swabi has the details.
Nicolás Maduro is standing very firm in his position, saying that he won this very disputed election, denying any allegations of fraud. However, he will continue to become under increasing pressure to publish these voting tallies, which have been long awaited. They are, in law, needed to be published right after the election, but we're still waiting for that. And that is a key thing, this lack of transparency, which many international communities are calling for.
Recapping the top story, a mass protest against escalating crime is expected to take place in Mthatha and the Eastern Cape today. The crimes, including extortion, femicide and stock theft, are expected to be highlighted. For SAFM News, I am Anne Musa.
SAFM, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
Good morning. Extensive closure of the N3 Durban bound. A truck overturning this morning on Town Hill. The road is now closed from Peter Brown. In fact, it looks like it's closed from Hilton down through Peter Brown and then on towards Town Hill. So really extensive closure. Trucks being backed up from sort of Sidara down to the closure at Hilton, and other vehicles being diverted down the R103. The R103 is particularly heavy and particularly busy on the run through Hilton down into Pietermaritzburg. So factor in big queues if you're in a truck, and factor in congestion if you're on the alternative routes. Just staying in KZN, the N2 heavy both ways through to Spaghetti Junction. Northbound it's the roadwork, southbound it's a broken down vehicle obstruction today. The N1 south through Midrand still with a breakdown at New Road, so that's heavy coming from Brockfontein. There's a crash on the R21 driving into Pretoria between Monument Park and Fountain Circle. That's quite a heavy backlog. And Cape Town, motorcyclist down in a crash, N1 inbound at Monte Vista. That's heavy from Belleville and Sand on Baden Powell, causing quite a backlog of traffic along that coastal route from Strandfontein through to Muizenberg. Rob Byrne, SAFM Traffic.
A very good morning to you. In your SFM sports headlines, we're building up to Bafana. They'll face South Sudan in Juba. That's tomorrow afternoon, 3 p.m. And in rugby, the South African rugby captain, Siya Kolisi, making a sudden exit from the French club Racing 92. Details around 7:30.
The Morning Brief with Thulasizwe Simelane. Weekdays, Monday to Friday, 6 to 9 a.m. The Morning Brief with Thulasizwe Simelane. Weekdays, Monday to Friday, 6 to 9 a.m.
Hey, good morning, South Africa. This is the Morning Brief. I'm Tula Sizwe Semelane. It's good to be in your company on this Monday, the 9th of September 2024. It's just gone 7 minutes after 7. Within this hour, we will be covering, I think the main story I want to flag is the Premier of KwaZulu-Natal, Thami Ntuli, who will be in conversation with us around the fight against crime. You will know from the statistics and what the police minister revealed last week that 4 out of the country's 9 provinces actually account for the bulk of our crime statistics, including crimes such as extortion. And those provinces are Gauteng, KwaZulu-Natal, Western Cape, and the Eastern Cape. Well, in KwaZulu-Natal, the Premier decided that he wants to make a statement of intent, not the political type that was signed a few months ago, but a statement of intent that says, I take this issue of crime as my number one priority, so much so that I will not have an MEC that I delegate this responsibility to. I will take personal responsibility for it. We'll get an update from Premier Ntuli within the next 20 minutes or so, who will be speaking to us about that. And then a bit later on, just before 8 a.m., we'll be talking about the latest report coming out from the Human Sciences Research Council, which is giving us the dynamics of the HIV/AIDS pandemic as it plays out in the country. It does feel to me like we've sort of taken the gas off the pedal a bit in terms of focusing on HIV as something that continues to exist in our society. It could be that perhaps we've become a bit complacent. Professor Khangelani Zuma will be talking to us about the complexities in as far as they play out within Gauteng. They'll be releasing these reports as they relate to various provinces across the country. That and a whole lot more, and your regulars coming up. You're listening to the Morning Brief on SAFM.
Dawn breaks across the lush Serengeti plain, but paradise is fleeting as the animals face fresh challenges. Kali the lioness and Bakari the baboon may seem safe in their rock fortresses, but with rivals encroaching on all sides, their future hangs in the balance. Out on the plains, Duma the cheetah faces his destiny. And down by the river, baby hippo Mafuta strikes up an unlikely friendship with the crocodile Magamba. Channel your inner explorer with Serengeti Season 3, Sundays at 6 p.m. only on S3. Open up. S3.
Niger have a mammoth task to silence their regional neighbors, Ghana. Meanwhile, the Black Stars want to bring back the glory days and triumph this West African derby. This is the Total Energies AFCON 2025 qualifier. Witness the beauty of African football. Niger tackles Ghana on Monday, 9 September at 6 p.m. Live at your fingertips on SABC Plus and SABCSport.com. Brought to you by SABC Sport. For the love of the game.
Big stories of the day. Hashtag the Morning Brief.
And the numbers to dial to get in touch and lead the conversation with us are 086 000 2032. You can dial that number 086 000 2032. You can also send us a WhatsApp voice note on 061 410 4107, and we'll play those out on air. Someone who has given us a call this morning is the Minister of International Relations and Cooperation, that is Ronald Lamola. Good morning, Minister, and welcome back. I believe you were in China and quite a busy week out there in China.
It has been a very busy week of a state visit and the FOCAC summit, but the purpose of my call is to welcome you into the public broadcaster in this exciting period of 30 years of our history, and to wish you all the best, because this is my first opportunity since I returned to call in and wish you all the best. As you are aware, the whole of last week we were engaged, but also to say you no longer have a right if you are an LLB holder
Yes.
You call yourself a common man on the street as you did with the political analyst from the United Kingdom. You are now a member of the noble profession.
Am I now a learned friend?
Yes, you are now a learned friend. You can't call yourself a common man on the street.
Well, Minister, I guess I get the point you're making. I suppose that you higher expectations of someone who has that legal background and that training. Thank you so much. The call is truly appreciated and heartwarming. A lot of people don't know how long I've known you, Minister, and I had to grapple when you became a minister. I had to go from calling you Ron and respecting the office and now saying Minister Lamula.
No, that's true. Since the days of the ANC clique, it's a very long time.
Absolutely.
But it has been a very good journey, and I wish you all the best, having come full circle from the SABC, from reporting from Legam Ziligazi to other broadcasters, and corporate South Africa, now back again at the SABC. All the best.
Thank you, Minister. I appreciate it. Let me take advantage of the fact that I have you on the line and just touch then a bit on the reason why you were in China last week. It was a state visit, of course, but also coupled with the Forum for China-Africa Cooperation. Something that came out of that, of the state visit element of it, was what was described by government as, quote-unquote, an all-round strategic cooperative partnership in a new era between South Africa and China. A bit of a mouthful. What exactly does it entail?
It entails that the relationship between China and South Africa has been upgraded to the highest level. To understand it better, is that this type of relationship China only has it with two countries. One is Germany, and the second one is now South Africa. And it's a relationship based on trust, a relationship based on a very good working relations between South Africa and China. But also, as you will have heard, the president of China, President Xi Jinping and President Ramaphosa, they said that now in relations to trade, it is unlimited between the two countries. In terms of agriculture, China says South Africa bring as many as possible agricultural products. The Chinese market is open to your products. With regards to beef, in the past we used to have challenges when there is foot and mouth disease in a particular district of South Africa or province, for example, whether it's KZN or Limpopo, they will now close that province. They will close the whole country. But now with this relationship, they will only close that district or that part of the country's beef and still allow the entirety of the country to continue to export beef to China. So this all-round strategic partnership is based on trust. We will cooperate on a number of issues at multilateral level, the UN, the various platforms at multilateral bodies. So indeed, the relationship is now that of trust, and which we believe we as a country have to take advantage of, particularly to grow our economy, to attract foreign direct investment.
Lastly, Minister, you know that you conduct this international diplomacy within the gaze of other players in geopolitics who may be watching it and saying you are moving ever closer into China and Russia's orbit. But let's talk about China only for this morning. And you are very familiar with the rhetoric that tends to follow. With this elevation of the relationship, is it safe to say it's equivalent to an alliance, or is it just a step beneath that of an alliance? And what's your retort to some of that criticism that says you are moving closer to the orbit of China?
It's equivalent to a partnership, because it's mutually beneficial. For example, the Chinese are very clear; they will not interfere in our domestic politics or in our foreign policy. South Africa retains its right to make decisions independently, to decide its foreign policy, to pronounce on any other policy matter. But they obviously will continue to engage with them. We will remain, even the African continent as a whole, is at a partnership level where all countries will be able to make independent decisions. They can decide their own foreign policy, but there is a partnership in terms of issues related to that will enable trade in the whole continent, support for the building of road infrastructure, harbors, and so forth. So we see this partnership as mutually beneficial, and it will be wrong to say we are just some kind of, we still remain, our sovereignty is still sacrosanct. We can take any policy decisions as a country.
All right, I've got to thank you for the call, Minister Ronald Lamola, who is Minister of International Relations and Cooperation, just really giving us a call this morning to welcome me to SAFM, as well as taking some of the questions that I posed to him around South Africa-China relations.
Okay. They actually did it. I mean, I've seen it done in other countries, but now they have a whole new local season of the show. Oh, Mzansi, you beautiful, amazing land with diverse families and cultures. Wife Swap South Africa is finally here. Tune in from Monday the 9th of September and see how families from across South Africa swap wives and learn a thing or two or three on how other families operate. There will be disruptions, lessons learned, tears, and smiles in this unique and insightful social experiment. Channel your best entertainment with Wife Swap, Mondays at 6 p.m. only on S3. Open up.
The future of education is here. Impact offers two paths to the future. Design your own homeschooling journey with Impact Homeschooling, or let our experienced teachers guide the way with the Impact Online School. Get quality, future-forward education. Visit www.impact.co.za today to register for 2025.
Dikwena tsa Lesotho plan to illustrate how quick crocodiles are in their own backyard. But the Atlas Lions believe they have superior quality to dominate the hosts. The South up against the North. This is the Total Energies AFCON 2025 qualifier. Witness the beauty of African football. Lesotho versus Morocco on Monday 9 September at 9 p.m. Live at your fingertips on SABC Plus and SABCSport.com. Brought to you by SABC Sport.
You are listening to the Morning Brief with Thulasizwe Simelane.
18 minutes past 7, and let's move to this now in politics. In what could arguably be compared to analyzing the equivalent, the political equivalent of a black box, the ANC's top leadership has been meeting with its regional structures in Gauteng to go over the electoral performance that saw the party score a mere 34.7% in the province in the May 29 elections. A key focus region has been the party's regional structure in Ekurhuleni, which has been led by an interim task team for almost a year now, following a disputed elective conference in 2022 that was later set aside by the High Court. Let's speak now to SABC News reporter Kenny Mapanga, who has been tracking that story. And Kenny, good morning. So an interaction between the deputy president of the ANC and the Ekurhuleni structure against the backdrop where the chairperson of the ANC in Gauteng, Panyaza Lesufi, described the state of play about 3 weeks ago as that of a sinking ship that needs to be rescued. How did the engagement by the deputy president of the ANC go with the structure there in Ekurhuleni?
Well, good morning to you, Thulasizwe, and to the listeners at home. Well, you may know that the National Working Committee met on Saturday, and then, of course, we saw the deployment of various officials across key areas in the country where the ANC has not performed quite to what it's used to in the previous 2024 national provincial elections. Now, there are two key areas that obviously the ANC will have to look at when it's doing the stock-taking exercise following those dismal results in the 2024 national provincial elections. That is, of course, the KZN province, and then, of course, the Gauteng province. Now, it was quite obvious following the previous national elections that the Gauteng ANC, was hanging on by a thread because they barely made it through in those previous elections, and we were expecting some kind of a loss. However, the ANC did plummet to 36% in the 2024 national provincial elections. elections. Now, we saw leading up to it that there were signs, especially in those regional structures, that the branches were not as ripe to head to those elections. So Ekurhuleni is that critical region, Thulasizwe. If they're going to revive and try to regain that lost ground, those are some of the areas they need to look at. As you've correctly stated, Ekurhuleni has had its fair share of troubles with divisions internally. That, of course, affected the stability of the region and local governance. And, of course, the ANC is there trying to engage those branches, and it continues today in Gauteng, meeting with those regional structures in order to have them ripe and ready for those next local government elections.
I wonder, Kenny, how much of this is inward-looking, which is part of the criticism that the ANC has faced for some time, that you are too inward-looking, too focused on your structures, the acronyms RECs, NWC, ITT, etc., and not focused on being responsive to South Africans. From the conversations between the region and the leadership of the ANC, did you get a sense that there's an acknowledgement that part of the performance is informed by how the ANC is perceived to be performing on issues of service delivery?
Absolutely. I mean, we were in a period where socioeconomic rights were thrust to the fore. And I think the electorate responded to that failure to deliver, especially in Gauteng, where we saw, I think, the most service delivery challenges and protests ahead of those critical elections. Now we're seeing the Gauteng ANC do a stock take and try to reclaim those local governments. We've seen it in Ekurhuleni, we've seen it in Johannesburg, and now we know there's a looming plan to reclaim Tshwane. And I think that is a recognition there by the ANC in Gauteng that you need to start there at service delivery in order to regain that lost ground.
All right, let's leave it there. That's SABC News reporter Kenny Mapanga, who has been tracking the developments around the ANC in Gauteng.
The only talk radio morning breakfast show that makes sense. The Morning Brief with Thulasizwe Simelane.
So we recently learned from the quarterly crime statistics that were released and as well as the police minister's speech in Parliament last week that just 4 provinces account for 73% of the country's high crime levels, including the crime of extortion. These are Gauteng, KwaZulu-Natal, Western Cape and the Eastern Cape. Authorities in these provinces are now under intense pressure to stem the tide of crime. Among them is the Premier Thami Ntuli, who earlier on in the year took the MEC portfolio for community safety into his portfolio, taking personal responsibility for it. So the Premier joins me now on the line. And Premier, good morning. Thank you for your time. Taking community safety within your portfolio was meant to communicate a message that says it's business unusual in as far as the fight against crime is concerned. What tangible actions can you list at this point, about 2.5 months or so having taken office, that have put into action that statement of intent?
Thank you. Good morning, Makotwa, and good morning also to your listeners. Thank you for having me. Well, as the province of KwaZulu-Natal, after incorporating community safety and liaison into the office of the Premier, which was a demonstration that we are giving crime a priority, we have identified it as the major problem that affects many aspects of the people's life in the province of KwaZulu-Natal. We quickly summoned the summit on crime with all the crime fighters, including the police, wherein we're looking at the program of action that we need to induce in order to fight crime. Hence, we have saw the level in which police are working, as led by Lieutenant General Mkhwanazi, being quite more visible now. It's because of the kind of the interaction and the support we are giving to them. And apart from that, we made a call to the society to report any criminal activities, even the illegal guns. And I'm told that the level of reporting to the police has improved. You saw us going to Durban, eThekwini Metro, on the issue of illegal occupation of the buildings, where we feel that is where some of the criminal activities are taking place. Hence, the evidence was discovered on that day, wherein we got some drugs, we got some fake dollars, and more than 120 undocumented foreign nationals. We proceeded from there to Mandeni, Bastebe area, on the factories around there, since we got the information that they are hiring undocumented foreign nationals, which is a problem in the province, because we are saying we cannot, when we have so many people from the province or from South Africa who are unemployed, have businesses employing undocumented foreign nationals.
So now that you raised that point, let me go to it. In your speech at Ingwavuma, you have been quoted as vowing to carry out a campaign for unlawful migrants to be deported, and you are quoted as saying, quote, "They must go back home and come back here legally," end quote. And the reporting suggests that you link that to the high crime levels. What evidence do you have to back that up, that, the contribution of undocumented foreign nationals to the levels of crime is disproportionate?
For them to be here in KwaZulu-Natal illegally, that is crime on its own. That is why we said our agenda, in fact, is to fight crime, all crimes. So then when coming towards Natal is done illegally, that is also part of crime. And we'll never be shy to say we don't want to see criminal activities taking place in our province.
Right. So tell me a bit more about this mass. Is it a mass deportation that you're calling for?
Not necessarily that's a mass deportation, but we are saying if they are in other places, undocumented foreign nationals, who are straight as the leadership of this government, that they must leave to their countries, so that coming to South Africa, in particular KwaZulu-Natal, they will come legally. They will come with papers, because we agree that we do have foreign nationals who came here to provide some skills legally, some business legally, but for those who came illegally, they must go back to their countries, because what is happening, you see the people are unemployed, businesses, because they pay them peanuts, they employ them. When we complain about unemployment, and we jobs which are available must be given to the people of KwaZulu-Natal, not given to people who are undocumented because they run away from paying the salaries which are expected to be paid.
Premier, I'm almost out of time, but I do need to ask you about the recent incidents where there was a police action and resulting in the deaths of suspects. We've seen quite a number of suspects killed in operations by police since the beginning of the year. Just be clear with us, has there been a direct mandate communicated to the Provincial Commissioner Nhlanhla Mkhwanazi and his team to take a hardline stance against criminals and to quote-unquote shoot to kill if it comes to that?
No, we never said shoot to kill. We said arrest criminals. But when criminals, in fact, retaliate by shooting the police must protect themselves. But to take a hard stance on crime is the order of the day. We said, really, we cannot watch people being killed day and night by the criminals, criminal activities taking place on day, broad light. We support the police in the work that they're doing. We keep on encouraging them to continue with the good work that they're doing in the province of KwaZulu-Natal.
All right, I've got to thank you for your time this morning. That is KwaZulu-Natal Premier Tami Ntuli, who is also responsible for the portfolio of community safety, having taken the decision that is his apex priority, the fight against crime. That brings us to 7:30. Time now for a news headlines update with Ann Musa.
Good morning. Thanks to us. In the headlines, the Children's Institute at the University of Cape Town says the current child support grant is way below the food poverty line of 760 rand per person. A mass protest against escalating crime is expected to take place in Mthatha and the Eastern Cape today. The crimes including extortion, femicide and stock theft are expected to be highlighted. And the mother of the suspect in last week's shooting in the U.S. state of Georgia is reported alleged to have contacted his school to warn about an extreme emergency. 14-year-old Colt Gray is accused of carrying out a shooting that left 4 people dead. I'll have details on these and other stories at 8.
Kathy Motlatlana on SAFM.
In a municipality or local government, because there are a lot of politicians, unlike in a department where a politician is only the MEC. But in the municipality or local government, you will find this, it's now mixed. You will no longer want to separate exactly the yellow part, the white part, because politicians as councillors are many there. Each one of them will want to get his or her hand in the cookie jar. These responsibilities are conferred to the MM. Therefore, let's separate or draw the line between the administration and the political administration of municipality. And in doing that, we are trying to curb people, getting people to appoint who do not qualify.
Biskopo Makamu, the MEC for Coxtra in the Limpopo province.
If you're ready to talk, I'm here to listen and nothing is off the agenda. Join me on The Talking Point every day from 9 a.m. to 12 noon.
This is SAFM Sport with Zai Khan.
Zai, good morning. So we're focusing on Bafana Bafana in this hour, and they're facing the great footballing nation of South Sudan, the world beaters.
The great.
I'm so sorry. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I withdraw it. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Such a hype man. Yes. Bafana have to get their game face on. They've got the likes of Teboho Mokoena set to orchestrate some midfield magic. Lyle Foster, I'm sure, will be ready to foster some goals. Sipho China also will be stepping in. So, yeah, Coach Hugo Broos will be outlining a bit of a recovery plan and leaning on 3 key players. So we'll also have Sipho China there stepping in for Ronwen Williams. He could be making his national team debut as the trusted man behind the post, and that's when the Bafana squad take on South Sudan. Now Bafana must bring their A game. They will be looking for victory on unfamiliar turf in Juba. Now, former Kaizer Chiefs captain Bernard Parker has recalled how Bafana duo Siyabonga Ngezana and Njabulo Blom have always been hard workers and not only players who relied on their talent. Now the assistant coach at TS Galaxy for Sia Dramovic, Parker was present when both players came through the Soweto Giant youth structures and made their first team debuts.
I would say not to mention Ngezana as well. You know, during my time with Blom and Ngezana, you know, they were I would say, you know, one of the less talented players, but most hardworking players. And with football today, you know, talent alone do not make you improve. Hard work improves you or polishes your quality.
Let's go to elsewhere. Cristiano Ronaldo's late strike sealing Portugal's 2-1 win over Scotland as the 901st goal of the striker's extraordinary career, completing a fight back in yesterday's Nations League clash. Rugby, South African rugby captain Siya Kolisi has made a sudden exit from French club Racing 92 with 2 years left on his contract. The decision announced yesterday comes amid reports that Kolisi's family was homesick. This news broke just a day after Kolisi led the Springboks to a thrilling 18-12 victory over New Zealand in the Rugby Championships. The Springboks overturned a 9-3 half-time deficit. Now, the Springbok hooker Malcolm Marx continues to etch his name in history with a crucial second-half try against the All Blacks in Cape Town Stadium. Now, that try not only helped secure the Boks win, but also tied Marx with the late James Small as 20 tries in a rugby jersey. Marx now holds the title of South Africa's top trying scoring forward, surpassing legends like Skalk Burger and Bongi Mbonambi. Up next for Marx is the 21 try milestone set by Peter Rousseau. In the meantime, Jordan Hendrickse scored a try at the death while Sia Masuku kicked 14 points as the Sharks 15 overturned a first half deficit to beat the Bulls in Durban yesterday, trailing 8-7 at half-time. Fullback Hendrickse barged over the right corner before Masuku notched his fourth penalty before the final hooter to secure a 24-18 victory for the Sharks, and that was in the final match of the regular 2024 Currie Cup season at Kings Park. Now, both teams have already booked their place in the semi-finals of this year's edition of rugby's oldest competition and will renew hostilities in Pretoria next Saturday to decide which teams will face the winners between the Lions and the Cheetahs in the showpiece on the 21st of September. And finally, Paralympic news. Team South Africa have returned home with 6 medals, leading with Mpumelelo Mhlongo. He won gold in the T44 100 meters and bronze in the T64 200 meters, breaking the T44 world record. Now, International Paralympic Committee President Andrew Parsons hailed the record-breaking achievements of all the para-athletes, fans, organizers, and closed the games.
Sadly, the time has come for me to declare the Paris 2024 Paralympic Games closed. But I call upon Paralympic athletes from all over the world to meet again in Los Angeles in 4 years' time, where the Paralympic Games will aim to transform America.
And that's how we wrap up your sport on the morning brief. I'm Zai Khan. Headlines top of the hour.
The Business Update on SAFM.
And for that, let's go to Ndawling Lechela. And Ndawling, in this hour, you're looking at the car makers who are lowering their EV production targets. Why is that?
Now, it seems like these car makers are just making a U-turn on their electric vehicle production plans. This comes as demand for EVs slow to us. So data from Row Motion showed that sales for fully electric vehicles have increased for the first half of the year, but slower than expected. This then has, just spooked those car makers a bit. So meanwhile, sales for hybrid electric cars are seen as a more affordable compromise between all combustion and all electric have fared better in this kind of environment. And we're seeing these car makers moving into making those kind of cars. Japan's largest car maker, Toyota, has cut its plans to produce EVs in 2026 by nearly a third. This is the latest example of a car company just scaling back its electric vehicle goals due to decreasing demand. European car maker Volvo has abandoned its goal of having an all-electric lineup by 2030. Instead, the company now plans to have 90 to 100% of its sales come from fully electric or plug-in hybrid vehicles, while allowing for up to 10% of the vehicles to be mild hybrids. Ford, in the meantime, has reduced its investment in pure electric vehicles from 40% to 30% of its annual capital spending, shifting focus towards those hybrid models. As a result, the company has cancelled plans for an electric SUV and delayed the release of an electric version of one of its top-selling trucks.
Sure, that is fascinating insights there, because for a while we all thought the future is electric vehicles, but it seems there are some starters in as far as that transition is concerned. You also are looking at company news, and African Rainbow Minerals is troubled by lower metal prices.
Just another miner reporting downbeat earnings on the back of those lower metal prices. ARM has taken a knock with full-year revenue declining 20%, further translating into a 40% decrease in earnings. The group is involved in PGM, thermal coal, and iron ore mining. Starting off with its PGM division, ARM Platinum was the worst-performing division, with profits more than halving. This was caused by lower earnings at the Two Rivers mine and significant losses at the Modikwa and Bokoni mines. The coal division also recording declining earnings, mainly because of a decrease in coal prices. This is expected to continue as demand for coal falls in the coming years due to the global move to renewable energy and natural gas, which is cheaper, leading to lower demand for coal and lower prices. Its iron ore unit, in the meantime, the only division that delivered growth in earnings. This was boosted by an increase in prices. Additionally, the weaker rand compared to the dollar helped their exports, just leading to higher profits in that division.
Just to recap then on Asian markets and U.S. futures as well as the JSE close.
So it's red across the board. Risk assets don't seem to be in favor this morning. That's as U.S. jobs data disappointed. With that, we're seeing the Japanese Nikkei down 0.7%, while Hong Kong's Hang Seng takes the biggest hit, hitting a 1-month low, losing 1.8%. This comes after a poor inflation report from the mainland reinforced concerns about slowdown risks. So slowdown concerns in China as well as slowdown concerns in the U.S. just not sitting well with a lot of traders. In the U.S., futures, however, are surprisingly in the green despite last week's decline. Back at home, markets ending Friday on a downbeat note, hitting close to 1%, driven by the industrial 25 falling 1.2%. The rand, however, holding up pretty well. It is down from the level of 1770 that it recorded earlier on last week, but holding steady around 1780 to the dollar.
All right, I've got to thank you for that. That's Ndauling Lechela. She'll be back with one more update for you just after 8:30 here on the Morning Brief.
Africa Update on SAFM.
For that, let's turn to Advocate Sipho Mantula. And good morning, Raz. I hope you had a fantastic weekend. Let's start in Algeria. It always, triggers it's eyebrow raising whenever you see the number as high as 95% for a win in an election.
Refreshing morning to and Jumbo Africa to the listeners. Indeed, remember that not so long ago we saw from Rwanda how Kagame got more than 90%. But we see history repeating itself in the north part of the continent. Algiers, the Algerian Electoral Commission saying that Abdullah Majid Tebboune overwhelmingly winning with 95% of the vote, and the second runner-off, Abdullah Hassani Sharif, got only 3%, and the youngest candidate that I was speaking about, Youssef, got only 2%. The turnout, we're not clear to us, it's between 48% and 50%, but what is worrying now is to see this outcome. What will happen now? These re-elections, it means Tebboune will now raise the issues of unemployment benefits, pensions, public housing programs. Those are the issues that came from his manifesto. Now, Algerians, they will wait for those mandates and promises that will come from the second term elected president.
Yeah. Let's move to Sudan then and focus on a troubling development. There was this mission, fact-finding mission deployed by the UN, and it has now found that war crimes may have been committed on both sides.
That is quite true. This was a 3-member fact-finding mission that was created last year in 2023 in October by the UN Human Rights Council in Geneva. Now, this team has found that with these 17 months of war going on, there's worsening famine, there is disease coming in, and both parties are equally to be blamed because of crimes that they've committed, that they are saying that they are war crimes, abuses, and there's also an embargo not to even protect the civilians. So this is a serious challenge that the UN mandate mission came out with a strong report saying that they are calling for the UN peacekeeping mission in Sudan.
Equally troubling coming out of Nigeria, Sipho, the group Boko Haram, they haven't had, massive, not that they ever went away, but the size and scale of attacks had sort of come down over the last few years. And now they've launched one of their biggest attacks in years.
That is quite true, a deadliest one, and this is in the northeast of the Yobe state, where they've killed 170 villagers. And those villagers, they were given a funny early warning of saying they should not go home or they should go home. But when they went home, they were slaughtered. And as we have said, Boko Haram established almost 24 years ago, but infamously it was known in 2014, a decade ago, with the Chiboko girls. Now there was a splinter within that faction of Boko Haram. Hence we find these attacks coming. But as we said, the Global Terrorism Index have said that the Mafa Yobe State killing is one of the deadliest and one of the highest as they look at the terrorism in the global index. And this is worrying for ECOWAS, it's worrying for Bola Tinubu, the Jagaban, who's the chair of ECOWAS, and for the AU.
Yeah, absolutely, Sipho. So lastly then, a bit of good news. We thought we did greatly with Philip is Here in 2010 with all the stadia that we built, including the upgrades to the soccer city. But Morocco is doing one better than we did.
Morocco is doing better. They call it the Grand Stade Hassan II in Casablanca. Remember that Morocco, Spain, Portugal, they will be jointly hosting the 2030 FIFA World Cup. What is interesting to us, I look at their capacity compared to the one of North Korea, which was 114,000 capacity. But this one, it went up with 115,000 capacity that will boost in the 2030 FIFA World Cup. And it is also what we call a museum, as they are calling it, as a societal gathering of celebrating different cultures in the North Africa, both Morocco and bringing Spain and Portugal, bringing the former colonizers part of what we call soccer diplomacy in this stand. So we'll be waiting as Morocco is building this stadium, and it will be ready by 2030.
The equivalent of £400 million, and it will be the world's biggest football arena when completed. Lastly, Sipho, your historical archives, I always look forward to those. You're looking at 9 September 1962.
I'm looking 62 years ago, there was this new anti-Nkrumah group called the Komasi Command. These were militants who were arrested on this day after an attempted assassination to the first prime minister and the later president of Ghana in 1962. There was a little girl who was killed actually to us on this day in that bomb blast that was in official residence of the former late President Kwame Nkrumah in the capital city of Ghana, Accra. And you still see those assassination of political leaders attempt and others they went through, but Nkrumah survived. But you will remember, Tulas, there was a military coup against Nkrumah immediately after the independence in the late 1957. Asante sana, Tulas, as leading the conversation, SAFM observing the Heritage Month.
History has no blank pages. Thank you for that, Advocate Sipho Mandula there with the Africa Update.
Weeknights on S3 are anything but ordinary. BBC Primetime brings you the best of British television from 9 p.m. till 11 p.m. Open your mind to Life on Death Row, Thursdays at 9 p.m. and Resistance in a Hostile Environment, a 3-part documentary showcasing turning points which would go on to define race relations in the UK for a generation. Thursdays at 10 p.m. Wind down your weeknights with The Outlaws, Fridays at 9 p.m. and explore the world's most dangerous roads at 10 p.m. Channel your best entertainment with BBC Primetime, only on S3. Open up.
Another day, another set of challenges. In a world driven by shifting demands, environment, social and governance, what guides your decision-making? We need a new generation of ethical leaders who have their eye on the bigger picture, who are not daunted by change, but inspired by it. Let Wits Business School guide your leadership journey. With our postgraduate programs, you can play a role in Africa's sustainable future. Apply today and make 2025 your year of impact. Visit wbs.ac.za for more.
Niger have a mammoth task to silence their regional neighbors, Ghana. Meanwhile, the Black Stars want to bring back the glory days and triumph this West African derby. This is the Total Energies AFCON 2025 qualifier. Witness the beauty of African football. Niger tackles Ghana on Monday, 9 September at 6 p.m. Live at your fingertips on SABC Plus and SABCSport.com. Brought to you by SABC Sport. For the love of the game.
SAFM, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
In tracking some delays around Pretoria this morning. The earlier crash which backed everything up on Eske and Patlele coming down towards Vanderhof. That has been cleared. The Mopani Highway behind that stays fairly heavy this morning from Brits Road down through Theo Martins. Paul Kruger through the middle. Capital Park in the CBD. That stays pretty heavily backed as well. And the earlier crash on the R21 from Monument Park going up into Pretoria towards Fountain Circle. That has been cleared out of the way. Joburg, everything's sort of where it should be. The N3 is perhaps a touch heavier coming through from Alberton, Elan's interchange all the way through to Modderfontein Road. The run up through Gilhooly's looking fairly heavy today. Durban, if you're on the N3 outbound, a crash on the wet N3 towards Spaghetti Junction, so watch for slowing traffic there. M7 into Central Pinetown's heavy. Fields Hill backing up from Hillcrest down into Pinetown. The M13, the run through Kloof is particularly slow today. And no change in terms of the N3 driving to Durban, approaching Pietermaritzburg. The road closed effectively from Hilton all the way down Town Hill to Chatterton Road. Major backlog of trucks entering Operation Stack, nothing getting through, and very heavy backlogging going on the R103 from sort of Maryvale, Sidara, as you take the old road, the enforced sort of diversion on that old road down in towards Pietermaritzburg. Make sure you've got plenty of time to get through if you're driving from Howick, Moy River, Hilton towards Durban, just coming through that Pietermaritzburg diversion. It is really heavily backed up. And Cape Town, some heavy pressure on the N2 inbound on the ramp to the R300. That is the crash scene on the R300 before Hindle Road, or just at that Hindle Road bridge in the Delft area, but it's pushed traffic back on the R300 north and then back along the N2 inbound as far as Spine Road. Rob Byrne, SAFM Traffic.
Devastated by the brutal murder of his wife, John Luther returns in the second season of Luther to policing in a different world. With his old unit gone, Luther finds himself working in the newly created Serious and Serial unit, headed by former police complaints officer Martin Schenk. And now, a strange and mysterious masked man wanders the streets of London, carrying out ritualistic murders in historic locations, working his way up to one final masterpiece. Immerse yourself in a world-class drama with Luther Season 2, Mondays to Wednesdays at 9 p.m. Starts Tuesday the 10th of September on S3. Channel your inner drama with BBC Primetime, only on S3. Open up. S3.
Hold on to your hats, folks, because FlySafair is heading to the windy corner. That's right, we'll be flying between Cape Town and Windhoek from the 22nd of October, and tickets are on sale now. So, if stunning landscapes, diverse wildlife and vibrant culture is your thing, get to flysafair.co.za now and book flights from just 1,800 Rand. With FlySafair, Namibia is never too far away. FlySafair, for the love of flying. T's and C's apply.
The National Thunder trust their game plan will topple the Sparrow Hawks. However, the Togolese believe they will punch above their weight to secure victory. This is the Total Energies AFCON 2025 qualifier. Witness the beauty of African football. Equatorial Guinea collides with Togo on Monday, 9 September at 5 p.m. Live on SABC Sport on DTT Channel 4. Also available at your fingertips on SABC Plus and SABCSport.com. Brought to you by SABC Sport. For the love of the game.
The Morning Brief with Thulasizwe Simelane.
All right, let's squeeze in a few of your calls and voice notes as we continue to lead the conversation here on SAFM. Let's talk to Scalo, who is out in Durban. And Scalo, you've been listening to that interview with the Premier, and you want to talk about Nhlanhla Mkhwanazi, the Provincial Commissioner. Good morning to you.
Morning, Mr. Simelane.
Yes, sir. Please go ahead.
Actually, my name is Nsikana.
Nsikana.
Yes.
Yes, please do go ahead, sir.
First of all, just in passing, I was wondering when I first heard your name and voice, why I didn't know you, because my relationship with radio in this country goes as far back as Charles Fortune. But when you had this conversation with Ronald Zamula, then I realized why I didn't know you, because you're quite young. Anyway,
I'll take that and run.
Welcome to SAFM.
Thank you.
I was listening to your conversation with the Premier, and as part of what you said the Provincial Commissioner Nhlanhla Mkhwanazi is taking a hardline approach. I'd like to caution you to be cautious before you make such statements, because if you go back into the unrest in 2021, Provincial Commissioner Mkhwanazi didn't take a hardline approach at all when this province was gutted. And so it is surprising for me to suddenly hear, you're not the first one, quite a number of people are commenting about the approach that he's taking. But it is inconsistent with what he did during the 2021 unrest. In fact, I had expected that Bheki Cele was a minister.
Yeah.
Would first demote him and transfer him out of the province.
I hear the point.
But then, please be cautious when you look at people's history before you make such
100%. It wasn't a statement, it was a question, but I take your point fully that we need to take in its totality the performance of that functionary, being the police commissioner, Nhlanhla Mkhwanazi, and not take it at this particular point, not be instantaneous in our analysis. That is the caller they're coming from Durban, talking about Nhlanhla Mkhwanazi in KwaZulu-Natal.
You are listening to the Morning Brief with Thulasizwe Simelane.
So there can be no denying the tremendous progress that the country has made in the battle against HIV and AIDS over the past 15 years or so. Amplified messaging on prevention and testing, coupled with the world's largest antiretroviral program, have meant that HIV is no longer the killer pandemic it was in the earlier years of our democracy. However, it may be possible that these successes may have unintendedly led to a taking off the foot off the gas pedal on the fight against HIV and AIDS. And the latest Human Sciences Research Council South African HIV Prevalence, Incidence and Behavior Survey, the sixth one for Gauteng, is out. Its principal investigator is Professor Khangelani Zuma, and he joins me now on the line. Prof, good morning. Thank you for your time. What are the key highlights coming out from the survey?
Good morning, Mr. Simelane, and thank you for inviting us. Yes, what we've seen, the country, as you indicated, has made great strides in the fight against HIV and AIDS. And we see that the epidemic is aging, so people are living longer. So we see the prevalence now being higher among older people. However, when we compare the 2017 and 2022, even though the epidemic is aging, but we still see a slight increase in terms of the peak from 31.9% among the 35 to 39 in 2017, going up to 32.2%. Maybe just to add that one of the concerns among older people is that even though people are living, in terms of people living with HIV, we found that among older people, 18% of them are still not aware of their HIV status, even though they are living with HIV. And also, about 22% of them who are living with HIV, who are aware, are not taking treatment. And that is a big concern for us.
Yeah, in fact, let's focus on that a bit more, because we know about the strategy of 90-90-90 that talks about 90% of people knowing their HIV status and 90% of those who know being on treatment, and 90% of those on treatment having the virus under control. So when you say those figures, does it give us a glimpse into the successes or otherwise of a strategy like that?
Actually, the numbers, we've even increased the target now. It's 95, 95, 95. And if we look in the province of Gauteng, for example, only 85.3% of people who are living with HIV are aware of their HIV status, and only 86.5 are on ART, and only 95 are virally suppressed. So what you see there is that we're still far below the 95 target, especially for awareness of HIV and being on ART. But once people are on treatment, more than 95% of them, as 95.2 in Gauteng, get to be virally suppressed. So we need to encourage people to get to know their status and also take their and be put on treatment. However, not forgetting using preventative methods such as condom use, because the statistics on condom use are really concerning, are very low.
Yeah, lastly and very quickly, Prof, the story around, I've been saying that it's possible that we are taking the foot off the pedal a bit. Is that assessment accurate in your view, that in light of what we've been able to do with the treatment programs and so on, as well as other public health concerns such as COVID in the last few years, we've taken the foot off the pedal a bit?
We have definitely taken a foot off the pedal, and that is for years, especially if you look at sexual behavioral data. Condom use is low, much below 50%. For example, people are reporting condom use, and very few of them are reporting constant condom use. And that has been the trend for years. And also, we have taken our foot back in terms of sexual behavioral communication information. We hardly see any billboard talking about HIV and AIDS, and that is a concern because HIV is still there. We still have a battle against it.
All right, Prof, I've got to declare our long-standing friendship, and now would be the time for you to tell the people that I was your leader at law school.
I think I was your leader.
Except for numbers, of course.
Of course.
Professor Kangelani Zuma there from the Human Sciences Research Council. And that brings us to 8 a.m., time for a news update with N. Musa. Oh, before we get to that, I've got to tell you this. Essential Cover from Outsurance pays out claims in cash, allowing you to choose your own panel beater. SMS CAR to 43187 now.
In our top stories, UCT report calls for increased child support grant and a mass protest against crime expected in Mthatha. Good morning. The Children's Institute at the University of Cape Town says the current child support grant is way below the food poverty line of 760 rand per person. A food poverty line is based on the cost of the minimum nutritional requirement of 2,100 kilocalories per person per day, without an allowance for other basic necessities. The Institute has proposed government increase its child support grant. It recently published its 2024 report on the South African Child Gauge, which focuses on early childhood development. The gauge measures the social progress and development of children. The Institute's Laurie Lake says child poverty has worsened.
One of the things that the Child Gauge report is recommending is for us to increase the value of the child support grant to the food poverty line. So at the moment, the grant is worth 530 Rand per child per month. Or you might be able to buy a loaf of bread, or you might be able to buy a litre of milk. You wouldn't be able to buy both of those things. So it's hugely concerning that the value of that grant is so low, and it's falling way below the food poverty line of 760 Rand per person per month. So it means that it's not enough to meet the nutritional needs of a child.
A mass protest against escalating crime is expected to take place in Mthatha on the Eastern Cape today. The crimes, including extortion, femicide and stock theft, are expected to be highlighted. The protest march will take place a day after the National Police Commissioner, Fani Masimula, visited Mthatha to give an update on police intervention in the crime of extortion. The Premier, Oscar Mabuyane, has expressed satisfaction with the police's reaction to the extortion syndicates in the province.
We have said that we can't coexist with thugs and criminals. We've got to flush them out. We've got to wipe them out. Our streets must be safe. Women must be free. People must walk free in their own communities without fear. A lot of progress has been made because we're confronting these thugs head on.
Police are offering a 100,000 Rand reward for information that could lead to the arrest and successful prosecution of two suspects in the killing of a 64-year-old woman in a shack in Kraaifontein in Cape Town. Police spokesperson Malcolm Poyer says the suspects who shot the woman 2 weeks ago have been identified.
The 64-year-old female was shot and killed on the corner of Marula in Tongabini streets in Wallerstein, Kraaifontein. Preliminary information gathered revealed that two suspects approached the victim under the pretext of purchasing meat from her. They allegedly followed the victim into a shack where the deceased was shot in the head. The suspect thereafter fled the scene on foot and have since evaded arrest. Tracking and tracing operations are part of the initiatives taken by police to trace the suspects. We appeal to anyone with information regarding the whereabouts of the suspects to please contact Crime Stop at 08600 10111 or via the MySaps mobile application.
The writer and poet James Matthews, who died in Cape Town at the age of 95, has been credited for instilling political consciousness not only in his own children but young people in general. He was detained in 1976 and was denied a passport for over a decade. Matthews' protege and editor of Muslim Views, Farid Said.
His poetry was for, I think, ordinary people could read his poetry and they would take courage from it, actually, because he spoke their language. So James Matthews, to me, was this radical, revolutionary voice at a time when, yes, there were other voices. They were banned, but James kept on writing,
Further afield, and finally, the mother of the suspect in last week's shooting in the U.S. state of Georgia is reported to have contacted his school to warn about an extreme emergency. 14-year-old Colt Gray is accused of carrying out a shooting that left 4 people dead. The BBC's Jenny Kumar has the details.
Marcy Gray, the mother of 14-year-old Colt Gray, has told US media that she called the school the morning of the shooting. She warned them of an extreme emergency and asked them to check on her son. It's not clear what caused her to contact the school. Reports also say that there appears to have been some confusion when a school administrator went to look for the boy, as another child had a similar name. Colt Gray appeared in court on Friday and did not enter a plea.
Recapping the top story, the Children's Institute at the University of Cape Town says the current child support grant is way below the food poverty line of 760 rand per person. The institute has proposed government increase its child support grant. For SAFM News, I am Anne Musa.
And that's the news for this hour. Theft, accident and 1 million rand liability cover, all covered by Outsurance Essential. Get a quote today. SMS CAR to 43187. Here's good news for you and your older car. With Outsurance Essential, a 22-year-old woman pays only 384 rand a month for her 2012 white Kia Picanto 1.2X and gets paid cash so she can choose her own panel beater after an accident. Get the cover you need. Get Outsurance Essential for unfinanced cars older than 5 years and valued at less than 125,000 rand. It's time to switch and save. SMS CAR to 43187. That's CAR to 43187 today. Licensed insurer and FSP. T's, C's and information online.
SAFM, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
Good morning. Crash on Pretoria's N1 North, just past Rigel Avenue. Quite a backlog through the R21 and back towards Buerta Avenue. Looking pretty heavy on that run through Pretoria, or into Pretoria at least. Crash on the N3 south at Van Buren. All lanes open, but pressure getting through Galulis. Durban very busy as the rain comes down. Just watch for those bumps and shunts. We are seeing collisions just starting to happen all over Durban as that wet weather causes some slippery conditions. N3 outbound, not minor, but an inconvenient crash at Spaghetti Junction. Delays from Sherwood, a crash between Hillcrest and Kloof this morning on the M13, just as you come into the central Kloof area. That's causing a backlog. The N3 remains closed from Hilton all the way down into Pietermaritzburg due to truck crash recovery. Big queues of trucks into that closure and a big backlog with the R103, the alternative route as well. And then Cape Town, if you come in from Khayelitsha, you want to turn up towards Belleville. There's big trouble there. A crash on the R300 North at Hindle Road. That traffic is pushed back along the R300 North, back on the N2 inbound as far as the Spine Road junction in front of Khayelitsha. Marine Drive, worth a mention as well, pretty heavily back coming out of Tableview from Sunningdale all the way down through to the first lights at Sunset Beach. Rob Byrne, SAFM Traffic.
A very good morning to you. In your SFM sports headlines, it's rugby. The Springbok hooker Malcolm Marx is looking ahead to the Argentina encounter. And in soccer, the Bafana Bafana coach Hugo Bruges has plenty of praise for Orlando Pirates midfielder Talent Mbata. Details around 8:30.
The Morning Brief with Thulasizwe Simelane. Weekdays, Monday to Friday, 6 to 9 a.m. The Morning Brief with Thulasizwe Simelane. Weekdays, Monday to Friday, 6 to 9 a.m.
Hey, good morning, South Africa. It's good to be with you on this Monday morning. We are into the third hour of the morning brief here on SAFM. And still to come in this hour, I look forward to our science and innovation feature. You know, this for the longest time, there's been concern about whether or not the use of cell phones contributes and exposes people to the risk of cancer. Well, you know, there have been various studies, and over the years, they seemed to not really come to a conclusive finding. Well, the UN has done some work that definitively answers that question of whether or not your use of your cell phone can expose you to a higher risk of cancer, and we'll be focusing on that. And that's coming up at about 8:20. A bit later on, we'll focus on all things literacy and books with the Department of Basic Education, and we'll be talking about, you know, it's the start of National Book Week and the importance thereof and the kinds of partnerships that are at play to try and ensure that reading is encouraged among young people in South Africa, and that actually they read for meaning. You will know about the statistics, of course, but not just doing that, but also doing that in mother tongue and reading in mother tongue and mother tongue instruction. That conversation coming up. But importantly, we have a bit of a backlog in as far as involving you in the conversation, as we say, leading the conversation. So in this hour, we will take quite a number of your calls as well as your voice notes. And the number to dial is 086 000 2032 and the WhatsApp voice notes to 061 410 4107. This is the Morning Brief on SAFM.
The National Thunder trust their game plan will trouble the Sparrow Hawks. However, the Togolese believe they will punt above their weight to secure victory. This is the Total Energies AFCON 2025 qualifier. Witness the beauty of African football. Equatorial Guinea collides with Togo on Monday, 9 September at 5 p.m. Live on SABC Sport on DTT Channel 4. Also available at your fingertips on SABC Plus and SABCSport.com. Brought to you by SABC Sport. For the love of the game.
Hold on to your hats, folks, because FlySafair is heading to the windy corner. That's right, we'll be flying between Cape Town and Windhoek from the 22nd of October, and tickets are on sale now. So, if stunning landscapes, diverse wildlife and vibrant culture is your thing, get to flysafair.co.za now and book flights from just 1,800 Rand. With FlySafair, Namibia is never too far away. FlySafair, for the love of flying. T's and C's apply.
Call to Lasizwe now, 086 000 2032.
And that's exactly what Prophet OJ in Mahikeng has done this morning. Good morning, Prophet OJ. And you want to talk about the video of Tom London and the treatment he received at the Helen Joseph Hospital.
Good morning, Tulas. I'm saved by the blood of God, Jesus Christ. Tulas, when I was in my early ages, I was a chairman of a clinic committee in my area. And when I was about 24, I was a chairman of the hospital board in my district. It shows how much I've been interested in following health issues. At the moment, Tulas, I'm really concerned. You remember that last week I said to you that I'm concerned because the diseases and deaths have overtaken scientific measures to deal with health in general. When I saw this video yesterday, it sort of reminded me of the journey I've been taking alongside health issues in the country in general. That in actual fact, whether we want to believe it or not, health department and health systems, the fact of the matter is that people are getting sick at a worrying rate, and people are dying at a worrying rate, while in the face of scientific measures to try and address this issue. So something really needs to be done aggressively and in a manner that will, so something needs to be done. We can't be sick and dying at this rate.
Yeah, I suppose, Prophet OJ, I mean, there's that element that you are talking about, and last week you talked about perhaps the potential spiritual elements of it, but what we can control, we should control. Conscientious delivery of health care, professional health care that reaffirms the dignity of the patient is really not too much to ask in 2024 South Africa. That is
the problem to us is that we are more concerned about the healing more than health. When we grew up, there was a statement which we always be saying, prevention is better than cure. Unfortunately, it would seem that we wait for disease to strike, then we react. We are supposed to be proactive more than reactive.
I can't agree more. Prophet OJ in Mahikeng there talking about a holistic approach to health rather than healing once disease has struck. Let's take a listen to some of your voice notes that have come through.
Good morning, Tulas and the SFM listeners. I mean, more needs to be done on our South African infrastructure. We just heard about the Helen Joseph story. More needs to be done before the government can talk the NHI bill. They need to focus on their infrastructure, not just Helen Joseph alone. We have heard recently other doctors in certain places complain about the healthy facilities on its own. Yes, we can blame the nurses, but what is the department doing? They are doing nothing. They are just being corrupt. Every day we complain about the same thing about our health infrastructure, but nothing has been done. Prima by Projectland. Thank you for the great show.
It's so sad what we go through with our government in their facilities. I had two kids in two different government facilities in this country. One was at Coronation Hospital in Johannesburg and the other one was at Frey Hospital in East London. I can tell you the experience in Johannesburg Hospital was atrocious. Till this day I'm living with scars of the experience, physical scars as well as emotional scars. However, the experience was completely different when I had to have my child at the government hospital at Frey, where the experience was extremely pleasant. The people were efficient, and not only that served with a smile that they're only now trying to implement in Johannesburg. That was what we receive in the Eastern Cape. How is it that two different provinces can give such different service in terms of their healthcare?
Good morning to Lasizwe and your team. To Lasizwe, you know the way situation is so bad in Gauteng. Every month I'm going to Bara twice a week. Situation is very bad. Bad. I'm traveling from Matosana to Bara. I can spend almost I can arrive in Gauteng in 6:30, but I'm going to get the help in 4:30 later. Service is too bad. I'm always crying when I'm going to Gauteng, to Bara, to St. John, even in Bara. Service is so bad, with no fear or favor. Service is bad in Gauteng. I'm asking myself, you can ask yourself, you are in hospital or you are in hostel. Service is bad. Is pace in Matosana.
Morning to last this time, so in Nyagalo Rich. The video that was circulating during the weekend about the Helen Joseph's hospital conditions and the treatment of the patients, it's what is happening across the country. You go to Bloemfontein, a national hospital, the conditions there are appalling. The ceilings about to fall. No, my wife gave birth in that hospital 2021. She was more concerned about the ceiling falling on top of her than to deliver our baby. The bed is falling, the ceiling are rotting, everything is, the state of that hospital, I'm not sure who's responsible to maintain the hospital. Is it Public Department of Health or Public Works?
Sure. It's really disheartening just hearing some of those experiences that you've had at public health facilities. And as I say, it can't be too much to ask that the hardware must be accompanied by the software. The infrastructure indeed does need to be taken care of, does need to be maintained and upgraded. And that video did show, Tom London's video did show elements of that not happening at Helen Joseph and from your experiences at other hospitals as well. But the software as well, the people, the soft skills, it just feels like someone needs to be standing there with minimum standards and basically cracking the whip such that it becomes known that if you dare stray even by an inch from what the standard is, you will be dealt with, and everyone just toes the line in terms of the standards of professionalism that will affirm the dignity of patients in 2024 South Africa, about to introduce the NHI. Let's return to that issue of police officers in KwaZulu-Natal, and Lungelo joins us from KwaZulu-Natal. Lungelo, the police in KwaZulu-Natal on your mind this morning. Good morning to you.
Good morning to you and the listeners. Welcome to SAFM.
Thank you.
There's a question you posed to the Premier around, has there been a specific instruction which has been given to police in terms of their approach? The answer to that is that that instruction was actually given as far back as 2020 in terms of the South African Police Strategic Plan 2020 to 2025. And it was a strategy which was approved by Cabinet at that time. So it seeks to reduce violent crime by 50% through a strategy which is called stabilization as well as normalization. Normalization is your crime prevention programs where the CPF is involved. And stabilization said to the police, by the way, this was a strategic response to the killing of police officers, especially predominantly in KZN around 2016 to the 2018 period. So for the strategy between 2020 and 2025, it was said the first year the police would get the resources. The second year, then they set up specific teams to respond to any hardened criminals who especially were involved in automatic rifles. So from 2023 onwards, those teams were now in place, those teams were now capacitated, and that is why you are starting to see the results that you are seeing. In fact, all provincial commissioners should have been able to implement that very same strategy. The difference with General Mkhwanazi is that obviously he comes from a background of the task force. So his implementation of a stabilization approach would be very different to the rest of the other provincial commissioners. So, in fact, when you look at it, it's starting to yield results. What it says is that the minute there's any automatic rifle which goes off, it's no longer your flying squad members or your normal police officers which go out, but it's specific set-up teams who are the only ones who respond. What that basically does is that it also safeguards police officers who go into a gunfight with two members and they're dealing with a gang of 4 or 5.
Lungelo, I've been spellbound just listening to you, I must say, just your knowledge of these issues as well as the policies. If you don't mind me asking, do you work in the space or are you just a policy nerd that follows these things?
No, I don't work in the space, but I was involved with the development of the Youth Crime Prevention Strategy at the National Office. So that's how I got to understand and just know how the functionality comes in, especially around policy development or strategy development within the South African Police Service.
Fantastic. Thank you for that. That is Lungelo in KwaZulu-Natal there, talking to us about issues to do with policing in KwaZulu-Natal, especially the policy elements of it.
Niger have a mammoth task to silence their regional neighbours, Ghana. Meanwhile, the Black Stars want to bring back the glory days and triumph this West African derby. This is the Total Energies AFCON 2025 qualifier. Witness the beauty of African football. Niger tackles Ghana on Monday, 9 September at 6 p.m. Live at your fingertips on SABC Plus and SABCSport.com. Brought to you by SABC Sport. For the love of the game.
Are you blowing your paycheck on car insurance every month? Monica, 39 from Three Rivers, pays just 1,515 Rand a month for her 2018 BMW 320i.
None of the insurance companies has come near to the price I'm paying. I am happy at Outsurance. I'm going nowhere.
SMS out to 30754 now for a quick quote that could save you hundreds every month. You'll also find out about included benefits like panic assistance and help it out 24-hour roadside assistance. Yusuf, 45, from Tegadal, pays just 700 Rand a month for his 2021 VW Polo.
I altered out, took the family up to go and see the snow, and I got stuck. The service was quick, even though it was in a very remote area. Absolutely phenomenal service from OUTsurance.
SMS out to 30754 now. That's out to 30754. OUTsurance is a licensed insurer and FSP. T's, C's, and limits apply. Premiums are risk profile dependent and reviewed annually. Client comments do not constitute financial advice.
The Science of Life on SAFM.
So for decades now, many of us have operated with cell phones, operated our cell phones with a good dose of caution, fearing that the radio waves they emit may cause brain cancer. Well, it seems we need not worry about that after all. A systematic review commissioned by the World Health Organization has found that radio wave exposure from mobile phones is not linked to brain cancer. This is the most comprehensive review on the topic, and it considered more than 5,000 studies, of which 63 published between 1994 and 2022 were included in the final analysis. Let's speak now to Dr. Armando Antonio, who is a radiation oncologist and cancer epidemiologist at the WHO's Regional Office for Africa. Dr. Antonio, good morning and thank you for your time. So from reading, it seems that this was an issue that had a fair amount of consensus already, that there's no link between these radio waves and brain cancer, but that did not kill the controversy and the debate all along. Can we now consider this matter to be settled?
Yes. Thank you. Say this article was published last month, and I would like to say that in general, WHO did knowledge product to guide public health commission studies and generate knowledge, including identifying risk factor for health events to guide prevention and control efforts to reduce the exposure. And along the time, lots of risk factors have been identified, like, for example, enzyme radiation.
Dr. Antonio, I'm sorry to do this. I wonder if you don't have us on a hands-free kit or anything like that. If you do, could I ask you to hold your phone to your ear? We are battling to hear you. And then just take it from the top again. Can we consider this matter now finally settled?
Yes, you can consider it, because it's a well study, as you say, it's a systematic review, and according to the data, there is no association between the use of cell phone and brain tumor. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can, Dr. Antonio. We are battling with your line, I must say. So just then, very quickly, let's see if we can push on about these radio waves that are emitted by cell phone usage. Now, conclusively, we can say they don't lead to cancer. Do we have any other concerns, though, about the radio waves generated from cell phones?
No. We don't continue to have concern, because according to the result of the finding of this study, there is no association between the use of cell phone and brain tumor.
And does the amount of time that a person has been using a cell phone come into the equation? So what I'm asking is perhaps nothing to worry about, if you've just been using it for a year or 2 years or so, but over a prolonged period of time, do we have something to worry about cumulatively, the cumulative effect of exposure to radio waves in this way?
No. There is no concern. Even if you are using cell phone for a long time or make a lot of calls, there is no association. This study is to talk to a lot of people that there is no worry about this.
And just lastly, to perhaps give us some comfort, why is it that only 63 of the studies that were looked at in this comprehensive review of 5,000 studies, the difference between 63 and 5,000 is quite vast? Why is the 63 conclusive and authoritative on this issue, and why only 63 as opposed to 5,000?
No, because when we are developing a systematic review, first we put the name of the article, and after the analyzing all of the article, only 63 had criteria to be analyzed. All the articles don't have criteria to be analyzed. That's why we select only 33. and is a good number.
All right, I've got to thank you for your time. It's a pity about that line, but we did get the gist of your insights there. That's Dr. Armando Antonio, who is a radiation oncologist and cancer epidemiologist at the WHO Regional Office for Africa. There you have it, folks. The WHO considers this matter settled. There was already a fair amount of consensus among researchers, albeit with some studies coming and sort of giving indications here and there, going against what was the consensus. The WHO, having reviewed 5,000 studies, and 63 of which were published between 1994 and 2022, now considers this matter settled, that there is no link that has been established between the radio waves from the use of your cell phone and cancers such as brain cancer. And that brings us to 8:30, time for a news headlines check with Ann Musa.
Good morning. Thanks to us. In the headlines, the Democratic Alliance Gauteng Shadow Health MEC Jack Bloom says a lack of service delivery is affecting many public hospitals around the country. This as the Provincial Health Department is investigating allegations into substandard conditions and patient care at the Helen Joseph Hospital in Johannesburg. The Children's Institute at the University of Cape Town says the current child support grant is way below the food poverty line of 760 rand per person. The institute has proposed government increase its child support grant. And the Activists and Citizens Forum says it supports the approach of the police to return fire with fire when criminals attack them. The civil society movement says the country currently seems to be in a war zone. I'll have details on these and other stories at 9.
SAFM, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
Good morning. Heavy delays. Pretoria's N1 North up to a crash in at Rigel Avenue. You might want to just take an alternative route, stay off it. It's really big. It's really heavy from Buerta Avenue. The R21 ramps onto the M1 North are all jamming as well. And there's a bit of onlooking on the southbound plus the sort of Monday volume plus the roadworks of that sinkhole. So heavy both ways, but it's that N1 northbound up to Rigel that certainly would be worth just bypassing if possible. Crash going into Sandton this morning on Catherine Drive. I beg your pardon, it's Grayston Drive, just by Linden Street. So coming across the highway from Wynberg, it's heavy, and the Mike 1 North up from Melrose just queuing to get into that traffic on Grayston Drive. Breakdown at Van Buren, so pretty heavily backed up coming through Galulis on all approaches for a turn down towards the Bedfordview area. No real change from KZN in terms of the situation on the N3. The road is closed from Hilton right down Town Hill into Pietermaritzburg due to a truck crash recovery. They are making good progress, but the road's closed. Big stacking situation for trucks back to Sadara, and pretty heavily backed with a queue into Sadara and then down the old road into Pietermaritzburg for the alternative route traffic. Make sure you've got plenty of time to get through that. Some rain again across Durban and inland areas, so take it easy. Cape Town this morning, Marine Drive for this time of day, pretty heavily backed from Bayside Mall all the way to the first lights at Sunset Beach, and the N1 easily the heaviest of the highways with still queues from sort of Plattekloof Hill territory all the way through to city centre. Rob Byrne, SAFM Traffic.
This is SAFM Sport with Zai Khan.
Welcome back, Zai. So the game on Friday with Uganda, an unexpected draw. I don't think many people expected that, and that has put Bafana Bafana a bit under pressure for a recovery. And you say that that hinges on 3 key players making a return.
Absolutely. And you know what? This match is going to be so crucial for the likes of Bafana Bafana come tomorrow, 3 p.m. You can catch it live on SABC Sport. And, I can tell you the 3 players that Coach Hugo Bruges will be putting his money on. And it's important to see that with the likes of Ronwen Williams not being there, you can look at Talent Mbata. Remember the guy?
The conversation
we had
Name
on
your
Friday.
child correctly.
Yes.
Talent.
Did he deliver or did he deliver in the dying seconds of the match? In fact, it was incredible to watch. 2-2 was that encounter. But nevertheless, we've got this match to look forward to. That's tomorrow, 3 p.m. Hugo Bruges hinting that Talent Mbata could feature again in Bafana's upcoming clash against South Sudan. Now let's go to rugby. And Malcolm Marx, he continued to etch his name in history with a crucial second-half try against the All Blacks at Cape Town Stadium. This try not only helped secure the Springboks win, but also tied marks with the late James Small's 20 tries in a Springbok jersey. And of course, the Springboks are not wanting to rest on their laurels after they beat the All Blacks. That was on Saturday. Now, he did say, looking ahead to the clash against Argentina this Saturday, Marx believes there's still room for improvement, and he knows the Boks can build on their strengths and learn from their mistakes.
Look, they're a great side, and they've got some great poachers as well, so I just think we weren't accurate enough at certain times, not only in the first half and the second half as well. They got a good couple of penalties at the breakdown as well. That's obviously somewhere that we pride ourselves in and being physical in. But yeah, they were accurate, and I think we were inaccurate at the breakdown. So obviously one or two things that we have to work out and see where we can obviously improve for the following games.
Tennis action now, and this time world number 1 Jannik Sinner storming past Taylor Fritz to win the US Open and secure a second Grand Slam title of his career. Italy's Sinner, he won the Australian Open, that was in January, held off a charge from the 12th-seeded American to win 6-4, 6-3, 7-5. It comes just 19 days after it was revealed Sinner had been cleared of any wrongdoing after twice testing positive for a banned substance, and that was in March. In the women's draw, it was the second seed Arina Sabalenka who beat the American Jessica Pegula 7-5, 7-5 to win the US Open for the first time. Cycling, Stephen Kang won the final stage of La Vuelta in an individual time trial around Madrid as Primož Roglič claimed his 4th Spanish title. Kang crossed the line in 26 minutes, 28 seconds, 31 seconds faster than Roglič, who had departed immediately before him, and 42 seconds quicker than Mattia Cataneo, who rounded out the podium. Roglic's time of 26 minutes 59 seconds was enough to hold off Ben O'Connor and Enric May, who completed the general classification podium. That's a wrap of your sport. We'll bring you more here on SAFM at around 12:30 with John Helica. For the morning brief, I'm Zai Khan.
The Business Update on SAFM.
And for that, Ndauling Lichela joins us now. And Ndauling, the tourism sector is, of course, you can not overstate its importance in terms of the GDP contribution in South Africa. For a cross-section and a glimpse into how that is doing, we turn to hotel groups from time to time. And City Lodge is showing improved occupancy and earnings.
That's right, Tula. So City Lodge, known for business travel, is staging a recovery. If you remember, business travel really tanked during that COVID-19 time, and it also struggled to recover post-COVID-19. But we are now starting to see that recovery coming through. The group's occupancies are sitting comfortably now above pre-pandemic levels. During the full-year period, revenue increased 13%. This as the average occupancy rate came in at 58%, a 2 percentage point increase from the previous year. The group says it had a strong start to the financial year with many bookings, but things did slow down in the second half. This was because of several challenges, including high inflation, increasing interest rates, as well as political uncertainty. As a result, fewer people traveled for work and leisure, leading to a slight drop in occupancy compared to the second half of the previous period. Although the group had fewer bookings in July and August compared to the last year, it's optimistic that as the economy improves, demand will increase, supporting its growth plans. And so it set aside 459 million rand for its 2025 financial year to upgrade hotels. Now, with no debt and cash on hand, the group is exploring opportunities to open even more hotels in growing areas across the country.
Yeah, nothing says bullish about the prospects of growth than what you just mentioned, 459 million rand to upgrade hotels. Speaking of being optimistic, the printing and publishing house Caxton is also quite optimistic and bullish about the South African economy. That's got to do with their expectations for consumer demand, is it?
Yes, it is. And it's really interesting to see how more and more companies are becoming more optimistic about the economy. Caxton, of course, being one of those firms, saying that it is well positioned to take advantage of an expected increase in consumer spending in this financial year. The publishing and packaging company is pegging its hopes on consistent power supply, slowing inflation, and higher prospects of monetary easing. The upbeat outlook comes as it recorded flat revenue, though. The group's publishing and printing businesses face challenges due to a decline in printing jobs and a decrease in advertising revenue. This was largely because national retailers reduced their advertising spending in response to economic uncertainty, reduced consumer spending, and just tough competition as well in that advertising space. Its packaging division, though, has performed well, boosting its overall revenue and earnings. Caxton has managed to also keep its costs low, which has helped shore up its balance sheet. Now, traders seem quite upbeat about the firm's prospects. It ended Friday's session up 9.4% higher, and on a one-year basis, that share price is up 23%.
And lastly then, Dowling, we've got the JSE opening in about 20 minutes. What kind of a day are we looking at in as far as trading is concerned, as well as Asian markets?
So companies seem to be upbeat about economic prospects, but traders rather, are quite downbeat about the performance of the overall stock market. Local markets poised to start the day in the red. There will be quite a number of drivers moving the JSE this week. Today we have results from Sun International and AVI. Later in the week, we'll get manufacturing and mining production reports for July, giving us an indication of how these sectors performed at the beginning of the third quarter. Looking at the rand, slight weakness as sentiment across the globe weighs. It's trading at 17.88 from about 17.84 to the dollar an hour ago. Growth concerns in China and US notching sentiment in Asia. Those stocks on track to close in the red today. Meanwhile, in the US, futures surprisingly in the green despite the disappointing jobs print that was released last week.
All right, fantastic. Ndauling, have yourself a fantastic day. Ndauling Lechela has been briefing you about all things to do with the economy and the markets throughout the morning here on SAFM.
Dikwena tsa Lesotho plan to illustrate how quick crocodiles are in their own backyard. But the Atlas Lions believe they have superior quality to dominate the hosts. The South up against the North. This is the Total Energies AFCON 2025 qualifier. Witness the beauty of African football. Lesotho versus Morocco on Monday 9 September at 9 p.m. Live at your fingertips on SABC Plus and SABCSport.com. Brought to you by SABC Sport.
The only talk radio morning breakfast show that makes sense. The Morning Brief with Thulasizwe Simelane.
So today marks the start of the National Book Week. It's an important week that fits into the conversations around literacy in our country, the levels of literacy, particularly among pupils and young people in the country, and their ability to read for understanding. You know all about the grim statistics that come through from studies such as what is known as PEARLS, in as far as the reading for understanding and meaning is concerned. We've been worried about that for a number of years, and the annual celebration of National Book Week promotes the transformative power and impact of reading across South Africa. It also, of course, coincides with International Literacy Day, which is celebrated on the 8th of September each year. Let's bring into the conversation now Dr. Naledi Mbude Mehana, who is Deputy Director General for Transformation Projects at the Department of Basic Education. Dr. Mbude Mehana, thank you for your time this morning. So just let's start perhaps broadly with the importance of National Book Week within the work that you as the Department of Basic Education have to do in the context of the challenges around literacy that I've just outlined.
Good morning, Mr. Timmerman. Morning to your listeners as well. It's very important for us to blend our platform, every platform, by the way, to the people of South Africa on the importance of literacy. Literacy its importance is because it opens doors to future learning, to dignity, to self-determination and realization, and also the fact that your children learn very early on that this is a tool that they can use in their lives, not just now, but for the future. So it is very important for us to support and make sure that we heighten awareness among South Africans of the importance of literacy.
And for this particular National Book Week and the International Literacy Day, you are focusing attention on what you're calling the Literacy Promotion Collective. What does that entail, and how will it move the needle in dealing with these challenges?
Very important indeed. The theme this year in 2024 that UNESCO has put up for the whole world globally, it is promoting multilingualism. Very important to that is the realization that we have done literacy and thinking that it's something that can be done in a vacuum. We cannot divorce the importance of language, particularly the languages of the various children in the country and in the world. So it's important that as we promote the importance of the African population in the world around efforts to get children to be literate and everyone giving them that equal opportunity. The importance of the CSM is that if we cannot do this outside of the home language, the various home languages of children in South Africa and in the world.
And when we talk about the use of home language and multilingualism, what's the state of play in terms of encouraging the publishing of materials, not only user-friendly materials, but engaging materials that are attuned to today's pupils who, some would argue, are far more advanced, more exposed to technology. It no longer suffices to have the kind of materials that some of us had when we were still in primary school all those years ago.
In most of these materials, the premise and the logic of African languages have not been used. Now, what compounds it is not only that we have to move along the fact that we need strategies and materials that are in line with the child of the 21st century and making sure that the materials that are available out there are going to be interesting so that children can be interested in reading in their home languages and in other languages as well. It is a challenge that we are putting up to publishers that it is not okay to just translate or transpose materials from English to African languages. This is also a call out for African language speakers, for authors, for everyone who has something to give to children, including through stories, but using technology as a technological affordance to make sure that as we ignite the love and motivation to children, they can also see that African languages can be presented in modernized formats, and this is the challenge out there at the publishing industry, and also to people generally who are African language speaking, who must invest in their languages so that we can be able to provide for kids the excitement that children in other languages see when they have books to read.
What will you say, and as a parting shot there, Dr. Mbude Mehana, to someone who's listening to this conversation and saying, all of this is great and nice for you to come out during National Book Week and have these collectives and all these agreements, but the bottom line is the pearls, the progress in international reading literacy study tells us each and every year how badly our children are doing in as far as reading for meaning is concerned. Last year's one was at 81% of grade 4 pupils not being able to read with meaning. What will you say to someone who's listening to that and saying, what practically have you done? You are responsible for transformation projects at the department. How are you transforming this picture?
The first thing that we must always try to correct is the narrative out there. The 81%, remember, Moses, is that we didn't have 81% of children who were tested in the past. The 5 years, it's a 5-year interval that PELS is done to children throughout the world. But what most important is that with of the 1,400,000 children who are in grade 4 when the PELS was administered, only a sample of 1,200 children was tested. Now, if you stratify that with 11 official languages, which is the only country in the world actually that participated in the PELS with 11 languages, and this is why the IEA, the body that has the responsibility of administering those exams, is saying the test is not appropriate for this country because it does not reflect what children know. It only puts up a situation where the test will be translated and then the children struggle with whatever is put out there in the translated different varieties. But what is important, and the key question you're asking is, what do we do about that problem? Center and key to that, central to that problem, is the fact that you accept now that the reading methodology is put out there. What we are teaching teachers to teach is a transposition which takes out the languages of children, whether it's higher education, producing teachers who must go and teach reading, and also our own strategies in the DBE. So we have a new a revised strategy called the Mother Tongue-Based Reading Literacy Strategy that focuses on the differences of African languages, and also on the fact that it is languages that are different to English, and making sure that there are language-specific methodologies that are used for teaching reading to children, so that you can move the needle in terms of African languages.
All right, thank you for that. I've got to thank you for your time and your insights there. That is Dr. Naledi Mbude Mehana, who is Deputy Director General for Transformation Projects at the Department of Basic Education.
SAFM, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
Still major delays on Pretoria's N1 North. It's a crash just past Rigel. Traffic's all the way back through the R21 and back to Buerta Avenue. The ramps from the R21 to try and get into that N1 are pretty heavily backed as well. So try and avoid that off-ramp at Buerta. Hit some alternative routes just to keep yourself moving. Coming south, it's a bit of onlooking pressure, plus the sinkhole closures there on the N1 south of the R21. So heavy going north, very heavy going north, and pretty heavily back going south as well. Roadworks at Clayville on the R21, still backing traffic both ways. Crash at Galulis on the N12 and R24 route. So before you get into the interchange, that's where the crash is. Both of those routes back to their respective Edenvale exits. And another crash, the second one this morning on the N3 going south just after Galulis to Van Buren. So the run through the interchange towards Germiston remains heavy. Also crash on the one north at Malabongwe coming up from Bayers Nordia. That traffic remains heavy as well. Down into KZN, no change. Still really enormous backlogs. The N3 remains closed from Hilton. In fact, from Sidara, really, all the way down through to Town Hill and down towards the Liberty Mall territory for truck crash recovery. It's an extensive closure, an extensive backlog as well. The N3 backing up to Merivale, the R103 coming off at Merivale through Sidara down through the Hilton area, or the Hilton Road area into Pietermaritzburg. The R103, the alternative, really under lots of pressure as well as motorists go that way, probably a few trucks also. Durban's M4, a collision on your way inbound near the Durban North exit, coming from Umhlanga. That's heavy. There's also a crash in the Roadworks N2 North before Gateway, so some extra pressure if you're heading up towards the airport area. And Cape Town this morning, there is now a broken down vehicle, N1 at Marine Drive. Now that's causing a delay and keeping traffic levels high from Plattekloof Hill territory all the way through towards central Cape Town. And because the N1 is heavy, Marine Drive quite heavily back through Pardon Island, trying to get into that N1 queue. Rob Byrne, SAFM Traffic.
Hold on to your hats, folks, because FlySafair is heading to the windy corner. That's right, we'll be flying between Cape Town and Windhoek from the 22nd of October, and tickets are on sale now. So, if stunning landscapes, diverse wildlife and vibrant culture is your thing, get to flysafair.co.za now and book flights from just 1,800 Rand. With FlySafair, Namibia is never too far away. FlySafair, for the love of flying. T's and C's apply.
The National Thunder trust their game plan will trouble the Sparrow Hawks. However, the Togolese believe they will punt above their weight to secure victory. This is the Total Energies AFCON 2025 qualifier. Witness the beauty of African football. Equatorial Guinea collides with Togo on Monday, 9 September at 5 p.m. Live on SABC Sport on DTT Channel 4. Also available at your fingertips on SABC Plus and SABCSport.com. Brought to you by SABC Sport. For the love of the game.
Call to Lasizwe now. 086 000 2032.
Yeah, let's take those calls as we lead the conversation together. Let's start with Richmond, who is out in East London. And Richmond, you are reacting to the conversation we had just a few minutes ago about reading in South Africa. Good morning to you.
Good morning, Tulasi. Yeah, thank you for taking my call. I am self-publishing author, and I have a number of children's books. In fact, I believe in reading and support reading. So I've been writing these storybooks for some time now. Now, so far, my books are used by private schools. In fact, they are buying these books. However, the public schools, they are not buying them. In fact, the principals that I have approached so far they've insisted that the books should be on the catalog from the education department so that they can buy from there. So I want to ask your guest, how can I be assisted so that these books can also appear on the catalog for the education department so that schools can see it and buy?
All right. No, thank you for that, Richmond. I mean, it's an important one. You are heeding the call that says more materials that are appropriate for reading by children in schools, and you are saying that you're not getting that breakthrough, and it is at a level higher than school principals, I imagine. Hopefully someone is listening and that can help us with that information that says how do you get those books on the catalogs of public schools. Let's stay in the Eastern Cape and speak to Felix. And Felix, you want to talk about state hospitals. Good morning to you.
Good morning, Smilanim. How are you?
Very well. How are you?
And the listeners of SA Radio. Men, it's not necessarily about health as health per se, especially with us in the Eastern Cape. I spoke to somebody now in the week about this extortions in Mthatha. This is a long time ago. Health, how many times haven't we been complaining? For over 15 years. And they keep on saying this minister comes in, he's going to do better. There's stooges there. I really don't know. How does the ANC think that people will vote for them if they treat people like this?
Are you not convinced, Felix, that there's been this increased deployment of police, we are told, in and around Mthatha? There's been some activity, we are told, over the last 2 or 3 weeks since government took the decision to deploy even more resources to respond specifically to the issue of extortion.
I understand fully, my friend. What I'm trying to say, even the health situation that we're talking about right today, we've been talking about that. I'm sure if you are in South Africa, you've heard that 10 years ago already about us in the Eastern Cape, our hospitals, our homes. I wish you could send your reporters to come and see our old age homes in the Eastern Cape and see what you can come out with. Do you want to tell me people must vote for you and you don't look at people, don't treat people the way they're supposed to be treated? You're more worried about your organization than the people, but the people vote you into power.
All right, Felix, I think I get your point.
Thank you.
The amount of time that it takes for issues to be attended to, and you're drawing parallels with the crime situation to what we are now talking about with the hospitals. Dlamini, you are out in Vaal. You also want to talk about the situation with the hospitals. Good morning to you.
Yes, Tula, sir. In particular, the Rahima Musa issue. Some last month sometime, this guy from KZN was complaining about the hospitals and clinics, that the people are made to wait long time for treatment. Another thing is, Nehao said the guy was lying, and then he was made to apologize by the SG of the ANC. I want to know what is he saying now, because this Tom London guy has revealed the same truth. That's all I'm saying to us.
I remember what you're talking about. You're talking about Begum Tolo and the various unions and that threat of defamation, right?
That is true, yes, to us.
Yeah.
But now, what is SG saying now, as this guy has told the truth about the hospitals?
Yeah. No, I get you.
I'm the first time caller. That's why.
Thank you for that. I really appreciate that. Dlamini out in Vaal talking about Begum Tolo and saying, now that you've seen what Tom London has shown us at that hospital, what do you have to say now about the comments that Begum Tolo was making? Finally, Alex in Mthatha, you want to talk about police approach with regard to crime. Good morning to you.
Good morning, Tula.
Good morning, sir.
Yes, I think we, the people of South Africa, must have patience. We cannot just complain that the police are not doing they are doing whatever they are doing. But this approach which they are doing now, starting from KZN, and I wish it could be just all over the province of South Africa. Because yes, I think this will fix our the crime rate here in South Africa. Let's just have patience and at least give them 6 months for 6 months. You see that there will be changes here in South Africa.
It's hard to have patience, though, Alex, right? When you're feeling the pinch. And I get what you're saying, that once programs are put in place to respond to a situation, you need to give it time for it to unfold. But I think the impatience is that it takes so much energy for us to campaign to even get to this point where you are seeing deployments, you are seeing a change of strategy and tone on issues such as crime.
Okay, I understand. But you remember there was a previous caller who you were asking that he did the whatever policing what.
Yes.
That guy was saying the right thing. Because now the police are armed now. We must see the change. We must see the change. They are armed.
All right. They've always been armed, though, Alex, eh?
Thanks.
Thank you. That is Alex there out in Umtata talking about the approach to policing and urging for patience among South Africans for the programs that are now in place and the strategies now in place to start yielding results. And that brings us to the end of today's edition of the Morning Brief here on SAFM. Thank you so much for joining us, and thanks to the team that put it all together. Essential Cover from Outsurance pays out claims in cash, allowing you to choose your own panel beater. SMS CAR to 43187 now.
In our top stories, DA Gauteng reacts to claims against Helen Joseph Hospital, and UCT report calls for increased child support grant. Good morning. The Democratic Alliance Gauteng Shadow Health MEC Jack Bloom says a lack of service delivery is affecting many public hospitals around the country. This as the Provincial Health Department investigates allegations into substandard conditions and patient care at the Helen Joseph Hospital in Johannesburg. The probe follows a video former broadcaster Tom London posted on social media. London, who was a patient at the hospital, accused medical staff of showing a lack of compassion. Bloom has called this a really big problem.
It's not just Helen Joseph, it's at virtually all the public hospitals in Gauteng and elsewhere. But one of the things that came out was just the terribly poor attitude of doctors with no empathy for patients. I mean, that's just shocking because, medical staff are paid to do their jobs, and you would think that doctors in particular, part of their motivation for going into a healing profession is to help people. So I think there's a really big problem there. Gauteng Health Department claims that they've launched a campaign called I Serve with a Smile. Well, it certainly is not operative at the Helen Joseph Hospital.
The Children's Institute at the University of Cape Town says the current child support grant is way below the food poverty line of 760 Rand per person. A food poverty line is based on the cost of the minimum nutritional requirement of 2,100 kilocalories per person per day without any allowance for other basic necessities. The Institute has proposed government increase its child support grant. It recently published its 2024 report on the South African Child Gauge, which focuses on early childhood development. The gauge measures the social progress and development of children. The Institute's Laurie Lake says child poverty has worsened.
One of the things that the Child Gauge report is recommending is for us to increase the value of the child support grant to the food poverty line. So at the moment, the grant is worth 530 Rand per child per month. Or you might be able to buy a loaf of bread, or you might be able to buy a litre of milk. You wouldn't be able to buy both of those things. So it's hugely concerning that the value of that grant is so low, and it's falling way below the food poverty line of 760 Rand per person per month. So it means that it's not enough to meet the nutritional needs of a child.
The Nelson Mandela Bay Metropolitan Municipality in the Eastern Cape is planning to install CCTV cameras in crime hotspots. Crime in the area has forced some clinics to close. The Mayor Gary van Niekerk says police are also investigating reports that inmates at the St. Albans prison are giving criminal orders.
We're at a very advanced stage where they will block a cell phone signal in the St. Albans precinct, which will make a huge difference as well. We'll go to the hotspots, we'll go to Edinburgh, we'll go to Arcadia, we'll go to Botchespark, we'll go to Kwazikele, we'll go to Kabah to go and address the communities, because you cannot have the most important stakeholder, which is the communities, not included in the solution.
The Activists and Citizens Forum says it supports the approach of the police to return fire with fire when criminals attack them. The civil society movement says the country currently seems to be in a war zone. Suspected extortionists have recently been confronting police, and this ended in a shootout. The forum spokesperson, Dennis Blom.
The police deserves our praise and not this opportunistic criticism. Crime in the country is out of control. It looks as if we are living in a war zone. Criminals don't have respect for human life anymore. They behave as if human rights belong to them alone. Police officers are killed as if they are the enemy. We applaud the police for the no-nonsense stance and action they are taking against these monsters. Activists and Citizens Forum fully support the police with their approach. Returning fire with fire. It's long overdue.
Further afield, and finally, thousands of people have held a protest outside the Senate building in Mexico City ahead of a debate about a controversial judicial overhaul that the outgoing president has announced during his final weeks in office. Many are court employees and law students concerned that proposals for judges and magistrates to be directly elected would politicize the judiciary. Maria Santoyo was one of the protesters.
We're looking for reforms that strengthen the judiciary. We want there to be more public officials in the judiciary and for it to be effective and prompt. And we know there are problems with corruption, and we understand there's a lot of impartiality. But these things won't be resolved with the reforms that are currently being proposed.
Recapping the top story, the DA's Gauteng Shadow Health MEC says a lack of service delivery is affecting many public hospitals around the country. For SAFM News, I am Anne Musa.
And that's the news for this hour. Theft, accident and R1 million liability cover, all covered by Outsurance Essential. Get a code today. SMS card to 43187.
The breakers of the barriers have demonstrated that bravery, courage and excellence often exceed any boundaries and limits. This exhilarating moment is the 19th edition to celebrate and honor the tangible impact of women in sport. Experience the Momentum G-Sport Awards 2024 on Thursday, 12 September at 6:30 p.m. Live on SABC Sport on DTT Channel 4 and reports on SABC radio stations. Also available at your fingertips on SABC Plus and SABCSport.com. Proudly brought to you by SABC Sport. For the love of the game.
When self-made billionaire Wilton Knight rescues police detective Lieutenant Michael Long after a near-fatal shot to the face, he gives him a new identity and a new name, Michael Knight. Paired with the unique Knight Industries 2000 aka kit, they are brought in during situations where direct action might provide the only feasible solution. Kusazo Shuba and Michael Knight and Kit are ready to rise to the occasion. Channel your best retro with Knight Rider, weekdays at 12 p.m. only on S3. Open up. S3.
Need low-cost insurance for your older car with Outsurance? Outsurance Essential, with Outsurance Essential, a 44-year-old woman pays only 465 Rand a month for her 2011 silver VW Polo 1.4 Comfort Line and gets up to 1 million Rand liability cover. That means if you cause an accident, the other car will be covered up to 1 million Rand. Get Outsurance Essential for unfinanced cars older than 5 years and valued at less than 125,000 Rand. It's time to switch and save. SMS car to 43187. That's car to 43187 today. Outsurance is a licensed insurer and FSP. T's and C's and information online.
The Talking Point with Kathy Motlatlana. Weekdays, 9 a.m. till midday.
It was the first book of poetry that was read in Parliament. They couldn't decide whether it was a book of poetry or petrol bomb. 3 of my books were banned. For 13 years, they refused to give me a passport. But these things did not prevent us from writing what we must write. Our poetry becomes a gun, and every word, every verse is a bullet. Those are the duty of the dissident poets. Freedom's child, you have been denied too long. Fill your lungs and cry a rage. Step forward and take your rightful place. You're not going to grow up knocking at the back door. For you, there will be no traveling third class enforced by law, with segregated schooling and sitting on the floor. The rivers of our land, mountain tops and the shore, it is yours. You will not be denied anymore. Cry rage, freedom's child.
James Matthew, an anti-apartheid activist, poet and a publisher. Something about those words just gave me goosebumps. I don't know about you. But of course, in the beginning there, you heard him reflecting on the impact of his first anthology and, the having that read out in Parliament and what it meant at the time. Of course, his work was also banned by the apartheid government. And the poem there, Freedom's Child, from Cry Rage, and news, of course, over the weekend of James Matthews passing away at the age of 95. Freedom's Child, you have been denied too long. Fill your lungs and cry rage. Step forward and take your rightful place. You're not going to grow up knocking at the back door. For you, there will be no traveling, third class enforced by law, with segregated schooling and sitting on the floor, the rivers of our land, mountain tops and the shore. It is yours. You will not be denied anymore. Cry rage, freedom's child. What a beautiful, beautiful piece of work. And of course, feel free, go online, find out more about James Matthews and his work. Very, very incredible words there. All right, you're listening to The Talking Point. Welcome to the show. A pleasure to have you with us this morning. And, of course, we're together until midday. And we'll kick it off with the open line, as we always do, leading the national conversation. What a weekend we have had. What a proud weekend for South Africa. I don't know about you, but there's just something. Isn't there just something about the Springboks and that their level of excellence and the energy and the vibe it just brings to the country, What it feels like to be a bunch of winners. Thank you to the Springboks for giving us one more reason to smile. Of course, a historic weekend for them. You have back-to-back wins against New Zealand, but also then the return of the Freedom Cup, having it come back to South Africa after how many years? I think over 70 years or so. So it really is magical, and it's incredible to see the kind of spirit that they all carry and just the tenacity to want to win. We can all learn from that. So if you are watching the game, if you are feeling particularly if you're feeling particularly positive about the Springboks, and perhaps whatever your reflections there might be, I'm more than happy to take those on board. Of course, last week we had to interrupt a good chunk of our show to take you to Parliament for that hearing by the Justice Portfolio Committee, where the Justice Minister, Thembi Nkadimeng, Thembi Simelane, apologies for that, Thembi Simelane was giving her reflections on her side of the story, and as far as that controversial loan is concerned. Now that you have heard what she has to say, what are your reflections on that? Do you believe that she's actually come forward, that she's given the country the full side of the story in terms of how she ended up with that loan and why it is that she would have been pursuing a relationship like that with an entity that is providing services to the municipality? I see over the weekend you still had more and more calls for her to, if not resign, at least temporarily take a leave of absence until this investigation is concluded. That's something now that's sitting on the president's desk, and she's also said that whatever happens next will be determined by her organization. And so if they ask her to step aside, she will, but if they don't, she's absolutely staying put. So I'd love to hear your reflections on what she had to say. And I read an interesting article this weekend, and it's around practices during funerals, and in particular the graveside. I saw this conversation online. I think it was about a week or so ago. But there's a growing trend of families hiring funeral parlors to provide alcoholic beverages on the gravesite during funerals. I mean, one would ordinarily have the funeral parlors there. They're providing water, and sometimes they'll give sweets and lots of tissue, obviously because of just the emotional moment that it is. But the funeral parlors interviewed in the story are saying that they're getting increasing requests from families for them to provide alcohol at the gravesite. And you have, people ask for wine, they ask for champagne, they ask for ciders. It's an interesting phenomenon. And I suppose maybe it's a reflection of how, the changing nature in which we're mourning people's lives. If you've been to funerals recently, more and more people don't talk about the moment as a moment of mourning, right? They'll say, we're celebrating this person's life. Don't mourn. Don't cry. They wouldn't want you to cry. They'd want you to dance and celebrate their lives. Some even go as far as telling people, don't wear black to the funeral, wear different colors. So our culture of mourning seems to be changing. If you remember at first the thing of after tears, after tears, the concept of after tears came about. It was frowned upon, but by and large it seems to have been normalized now. And this phenomena, is it something that you are aware of? What do you make of it? And this idea of celebrating somebody's life, what does celebrating somebody's life look like? In the context of 2024. And I was asking myself, would I want alcohol to be served at my graveside? I don't know. I wouldn't. Let it be clear. There must be no confusion. But for those of you that do actually want to be buried, is this something that you would want, that you would approve for your funeral? It was something that struck me, but it's obviously a phenomenon that's growing. Let's have the conversation. 086 000 2032 on the WhatsApp line 0614 104 107. It is your National Roundtable. Of course, you get to put whatever you want on the agenda.
The National Thunder trust their game plan will trouble the Sparrow Hawks. However, the Togolese believe they will punch above their weight to secure victory. This is the Total Energies AFCON 2025 qualifier. Witness the beauty of African football. Equatorial Guinea collides with Togo on Monday, 9 September at 5 p.m. Live on SABC Sport on DTT Channel 4. Also available at your fingertips on SABC Plus and SABCSport.com. Brought to you by SABC Sport. For the love of the game.
Here's what real clients say about Outsurance. Here's Fundi, 46 from Brackenfell.
They give me lesser amount for my car. 523 rand on my 2013 Hyundai iX35.
Monica, 39 from Three Rivers, pays just 1,515 rand a month for her 2018 BMW 320i.
Give Outsurance a call. You can't lose.
SMS out to 30754 now. That's out to 30754. Outsurance is a licensed insurer and FSP. T's and C's online. Hashtag SAFM Talking Point.
All right, we start the open line in Durban this morning. Sianda, good morning.
Good morning, Kathy. How are you?
I'm well, thank you, Sianda.
I'm all good too, under the circumstances. It's interesting that I get to call on radio for the very first time, but then out of a bit of frustration. So I'm an entrepreneur in the space of construction, and we've been involved with contracts that are linked with water and sanitation, which get implemented by, I'd say, implementing agents at the Department of Education. And we struggle a big deal of late payments. And because of the lack of communication, or I'd say lack of getting written advices in terms of what the challenges are or anticipated dates for payments, it then makes you an unreliable person to whether the suppliers that you work with, the team or employees that you work with, or whoever is actually a beneficiary of that particular project, because you can only go up to a certain extent with your own cash flow, and at some point these contracts must pay so that the project self-sustains itself. It then becomes even worse when you then finish the project and then the client doesn't pay you for over 60, 90 days. And like I'm talking to you, I do feel that my company is actually literally collapsing because of these issues.
Sianda, the issue of government not paying on time has been such an ongoing problem, but I think in you calling into the show is an opportunity perhaps to make the point again about how individual lives and businesses are affected by all of this. So how has your business been affected in the last couple of months based on your experience?
So the business gets affected in many parts. Like one of them would be, you'd understand that we need to sort out our taxes. So in order for you to be able to continue trading, you must always be tax compliant with SARS. Tax compliance is directly related with having cash flow. I'll tell you for a fact that returns are done bi-monthly, but if I'm doing a project and there's 50,000 rand in the account and I owe SARS, I'd say 40,000 rand, and yet the site requires cement with 20,000 rand, I'm definitely going to go and buy cement instead of actually waiting for a day that I can pay SARS. Then the very same government doesn't pay you on the due date, which you probably have budgeted that you'll then use those funds to actually pay SARS. Then you become non-compliant, which means then you can't then go and bid or look for more work. When you're non-compliant, you can't trade. Government doesn't pay you. So you can then see, so it's a ripple effect. There's no longer continuity on the business outside the contracts that you are actually doing. When you then don't have future work to do, you lose your team. So I'm saying frustration. I can tell you, I'm one man in the office right now. I've lost 2 technicians, and then last week I lost my assistant, my office administrator, because they can see that the ship is sinking every time you're giving excuses, let alone the letters of demand that are flocking into the office.
How long have you been waiting for payment for, Sianda?
So it's in two parts. Last year, we had payments delayed from December up until those payments were done in the middle of March this year. We had 10% that was remaining on the contract. From those payments, we then finished the entire contract. Then we put in certificates again to be paid. We've handed over the school. It's being used. The kids are benefiting. Everyone's benefiting. But after that, we then never received payment up until now. So that part has been the one that's been a nail in the coffin.
Yeah, it sounds like it's an incredibly difficult position that you're in as a company. Perhaps the best thing to do, Sianda, is get you in touch with some of the officials at the Public Service Commission, because I know that they've been actively working on this issue of the payment of small businesses within, the 30-day period. So perhaps, they will be able to take this issue up with the relevant departments. And you say it's the Department of Water and Sanitation, right?
No, it's Department of Education, but the projects are water and sanitation infrastructure to schools.
Department of Education. All right. Yes. We'll also reach out to the Department of Education, Sianda, to find out what the issue is, because in all likelihood, it's not just you that is affected by it. You'll find that there are other small businesses that are going through the same thing. And we know that the department has been facing budget cuts, etc. But surely this is not a way of treating small business owners. You can hear the desperation that is in Sianda's voice, and just the fact that his business is where it is. So we'll reach out then to those two and find out what it is that can be done. Neje, you're calling us from